So Donald Trump waves to people. A picture is taken. He has golf blisters on his hand. And now the media is awash with conspiracies that he's got syphilis or perhaps the clap, which I don't believe red marks on your hand is a symptom of the clap. Nor do I think, like, this is really funny, because people are, like, the news outlets are actually reporting on this, claiming it's syphilis. I'm like, dude, they're golf blisters. He went golfing. That, like, this is totally not news. But the talking point is, and the funny thing is, if Trump actually had syphilis and it had progressed to the point where his hand is covered in blisters all over his body, this would imply he's had syphilis for, I think, like 10 years, and he's never taken an antibiotic before. So welcome to the 2024 election cycle, where you got James Carville commenting on how he thinks Trump has the clap. And this is going to be it. They're going to win by claiming Trump's golf. Okay, when you golf and your gloves aren't right or whatever, you get blisters. It happens all the time. You can Google it. There's photos everywhere. It's really not surprising. In fact, some professor just came out outright when asked for comment by one of these news organizations, like, they're golf blisters. But they're going to keep running this story, so we'll talk about that. Plus, man, Democrats are actually starting to panic because Donald Trump is winning the youth vote. Not an exaggeration. I almost don't want to believe it because I think they're lying to us. I think their strategy is like, hey, you know how we're always wrong and we underestimate Trump in the polls? Let's overestimate him in the polls, lull him into a false sense of security. But we even have Vox writing that Democrats are panicking as they lose the youth vote. And more and more Trump is gaining these young voters. Teen Vogue is even writing about it. So we'll talk about that. Plus, we got another clip from Sean Strickland. Dude, Sean Strickland, you're awesome. You're amazing. I'm really excited to see your fight. He's wearing a shirt that says "Make Canada Great Again." He shouts out to the people in the audience that he's here to defend them, their rights, their free speech. This guy's a warrior. So I just say everybody should watch this fight, support UFC, support Strickland and what he's standing up for. He's a good dude, and he's got balls. But we will jump into all that stuff. Before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com. If you want to purchase some of the best coffee you've ever had, I got to say, we were going over the numbers the other day in sales. Appalachian Nights is a home run. The other coffee stuff we do sell, the other blends, Rise with Roberto Jr., Stand Your Grounds is also very popular. It seems like we sell these because we shout them out. People who like the show and want to support us will buy it. But Appalachian Nights, it's like in a week or 2 week period, we're selling thousands of bags, whereas the other ones are doing hundreds, really. And I keep hearing from people saying Appalachian Nights really is the best coffee they've ever had. Well, I really do appreciate it. We basically, the way it works is we received a bunch of different samples, a bunch of different origins, and we came up with what we thought was the best and what we liked the most. And in our crafting of the blend, Appalachian Nights was one of the ones we made, and apparently people really do love it, so I recommend it. But don't forget, we also got Alex Stein's Primetime Grind, 2 times caffeine. We got the new commercial with Alex Stein up right now. You can check it out. It's hilarious. And castbrew.com if you want to support the show, but also head over to timcast.com. Click Join Us, become a member, because we're going to have a wild members-only show coming up for you tonight at 10 p.m. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I must stress, everything we do is made possible because we have members like you. It's how we fund this operation. So if you want to watch the Uncensored show, if you want to join the Discord and hang out with like-minded individuals to help build culture, that I really recommend. Become a member. But if you like the work we're doing, if you like the primary show that we did in Iowa, and if you want to help us do more events coming up, become a member, because your membership, be it only $10 a month, it all adds up, allows us to budget effectively and build culture and fight that culture war. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and everything else, Dom Lucre.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Who are you? What do you do?
I'm an investigative journalist, just independent journalism, mainly known on X.
Right on. I hear you're the breaker of narratives.
Yeah, that's what people say.
All right.
People say.
So you're here. We'll see what narratives get broken.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely excited to break some.
All right. Should be fun. Hannah Claire Brimelow's hanging out.
Hey, I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. I'm looking forward to the show tonight. And Libby's here.
Hey, Hannah Claire.
Hey, how are you?
Hey, Tim. Hey, Dom. Glad to be here. I'm Libby Emmons, the editor with the Post Millennial, and glad to be on the show.
Yeah.
I'm filling in for Ian again.
Wow, he's gone.
Yeah.
And I am Serge.com. I'm going to adjust the brightness on Hannah's camera really fast. And
Who's?
Hannah's camera real fast.
Who's?
Hannah Claire's camera.
Thank goodness.
Dang it, I'm fired. That's
You
right.
are fired. You're immediately fired.
My last Brimcast ever. All right, let's go.
All right, here's the big story of the day. The first thing I want to say, Trump, let me read the title for you. Trump's red hand markings draw wild speculation, including syphilis conspiracies. And so here's the, let's open the image so you can get a better view of it. I'm going to be honest with everybody. So we're sitting here getting ready for the show, and I'm just like, there really is no news today. And, you know, one of the top stories on the Daily Mail is like, horses pull SUV from ditch. And I was like, what is this? Not news. But man, they're really grasping. And so the people who hate Trump are running out of things to hate Trump about. So when Trump waves and he's got blisters on his hands, which are clearly golf blisters, there's no other explanation. I mean, maybe he felt fine, whatever, but you can look at where they're at. Clearly from gripping a golf club. Golf blisters are extremely common. These are the stories that they decide to run. Could Donald Trump have syphilis? They say former President Donald Trump was photographed Wednesday leaving his Manhattan apartment with patchwork of red markings resembling blisters on his right hand, drawing mass speculation about the cause of the apparent affliction, as Trump has stayed uncharacteristically mum on the subject.
Resembling
What's to say? Like,
Well, do you ever
to
think
be not mum about?
Do you think we'll ever get to the point where we elect a president that openly has syphilis? I mean, that's my question.
No.
Are we just taking away the stigma?
No. In order for Trump to have had progressed in syphilis to that degree, it would mean that he had symptoms for like 10 years. Okay, so, or like...
So you don't think we'll ever be like, this president will be like, I have syphilis and I should lead the country? And
it is an entirely curable disease.
I don't know. What if
So
he's
it
just
would
trying
be
to end
like-
the stigma?
You can get some, what is it, like antibiotics or something? But I want to say this is why people hate the media and don't trust the media, because this is basically the lead story of the day, which is ridiculous.
It really is. Look, like James Carville is talking about it. MSNBC is talking about it.
Do you think that's because people are
I just-
lazy,
look-
though? I feel like this is
No, I
easier
think
than
it's
some of the other
'cause
stuff
people
that's going
suck.
on.
Right now, aliens are in their spaceship above the Earth, and they're about to press the make first contact button. And this story popped up, and then the other alien pushed the hand away and said, "No,
Not,
Can't
No.
go there.
today.
not these people.
Get behind me, Satan.
No, these people are no good. We're eject," and then they leave. We're not going to bring them into the Galactic
Funny,
Federation.
it said resembling blisters, didn't it? It said resembling. It's kind of
Resembling.
funny.
Yeah.
They
Can't
put it
say
right
what
there.
they are.
Instead of
Yeah.
what?
Not sure.
Yeah, just for it's funny the way that they play those tricks.
Host of MSNBC's Morning Joe questioned whether the blemishes were magic marker, blood, or something that may have been
Magic
exacerbated
marker.
by Trump slamming his hands on the table during his defamation trial surrounding statements he made about writer E. Jean Carroll. What I love about this is that, first, we here at Timcast, when I saw the story, you know, the first thing I did was I scrolled past it. I saw a story that says, "What is wrong with Trump's hands?" I went, and then I kept going. And then I read an op-ed from the Covington Catholic kid, Nick Samuel. I'm like, oh, here's an op-ed. I'll read about that story. That matters to me. And but this is picked up by all the cable outlets. And so finally, when I started realizing everybody's talking about this, I Google searched blisters on hand, and golf blisters is like one of the first things I found. And I was like, oh, Trump goes golfing.
He goes
Okay.
golfing all the time. It's like
Or
his favorite
it could be
thing.
this other thing that we like better because it assassinates his character.
Also, you know, it's like you mentioned the E. Jean Carroll trial that's going on. And of course, they would come up with syphilis because it links it to something, you know, sexually untoward. And then it almost like meta verifies her stupid narrative.
Like Democratic strategist James Carville didn't mince words. They don't look like cuts to me. I think there's a good chance this man has the clap. Okay, that's gonorrhea. And I do not believe that causes blisters on your hands, but I don't know for sure. He said Wednesday on the Politicon podcast, noting he consulted a number of doctors who all came to the consensus that Trump has secondary syphilis, though he did not identify the doctors, and added the disclaimer that the photos may have been doctored. Holy crap. Okay, so syphilis has phases, and secondary, I could be totally wrong, but I think secondary syphilis is like a year or two out or something like that.
Yeah, it's a while later. I the only thing I really know about syphilis is that Nietzsche had syphilis, and I think it killed him because
They used to
They
drink
didn't-
mercury.
Yeah,
How do they get away
didn't-
with writing stuff like this and calling them conservatives conspiracy theorists? Is beyond
That's
me.
such a good question.
Well, they're a cult. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, so you have post-liberals, former Democrats, disaffected liberals, conservatives, all of us disagreeing on policy. But the one thing we agree on is these people are crackpot cultist weirdos. And so they'll call all of us conspiracy theorists when we say stuff like, yeah, you guys are crazy. But that's it. And you ask, how do they get away with it? Well, how do they get away with a woman claiming that 30 years ago Trump raped her in the Bergdorf or whatever, and Trump's like, there's no evidence. I've never met the woman. I have no idea what she's talking about. And they're just like, you're liable anyway, so whatever.
It's crazy.
Who's going to want to live? I'm sorry, I would not want to live in any of these places, these cities. We're really getting... New York is beyond the communist utopia, communist dystopia nonsense, where quite literally a stranger you've never met. I think Trump, they're saying that he knew E. Jean Carroll, whatever, and there's like a photo of them at a party at the same time. And Trump's like, I've been to a bunch of parties with a bunch of people. I don't know who this person is.
He went to every party of the socialite set.
And he was probably the most well-known person in most of those
And multiple
rooms.
women
Right.
came to take pictures with him.
Right.
It was
Right.
something- Yeah.
So one day, you're going to get sued by someone you've never heard of, claiming that you, I don't know, like in this instance for Trump, raped her or whatever, or sexually assaulted her. This woman just clearly, everybody agrees, is a whack job.
Yeah.
It's a whack job. But this is the current state of American politics. And it's funny because I'm like, guys, I'm going to say it. Civil war. If there's not going to be one, and maybe not, it's just social collapse. And so maybe it won't ever be like mass scale fighting over control of the government or anything like that. It'll just be, somebody who lives in Iowa doesn't view Missouri as their neighbor anymore.
I feel like part of the timing of the story has to do with the fact that they were at Melania's mom's funeral today. It's like there can't be any moment where the Trumps seem like a sympathetic family. They're
Yeah,
just going through
that's a good
something.
point.
Actually, we have to be reminded that we being mainstream media hate him at all times, at all costs. And I find that to be really ugly. I think people become disenchanted with consuming news that's basically fueled on speculation and hate.
If you actually look at any of the websites that can show you the views of these websites, of other websites like Ahrefs or SEMrush, it shows that their views have went down significant. It's a significant drop in CNN and all the mainstream because a lot of the viewers were stressing. If you look in the comments, CNN them even removed the comment section off their websites because it's like, why are they still talking about Trump? They say, you don't even have to bash Biden. We just want to know what our active president is doing. They were more concerned about Trump. I remember when he was just taking the high road and being very quiet. They were criticizing him for golfing, saying that he was no longer caring about the audience. Like, bro, I thought he isn't president anymore.
Well,
So
you can't do anything
this is the
right.
nature of the media. Donald Trump is forced into an emergency bunker by far left insurrectionists, and the media made fun of him and called him Bunker Boy. I'm like, so when the far left interfered in the official proceedings of the United States by firebombing the White House, that's not an insurrection. But when J6ers interfere in the electoral count, that's an insurrection. I'm like, either they're both insurrections or neither are insurrections.
Or neither
Right?
are, yeah.
Pulling a fire alarm as well.
Oh,
Wanna
yeah,
vote?
dude.
Fire
Wanna vote?
alarm. Yeah.
How that guy is not just locked up.
Well, and he has great ideas for reparations now,
Yes.
too, that he was talking about today.
Like he
Yeah.
got a new promotion.
Yeah.
I think, what I was just saying about social breakdown. There's a big story right now where Texas has begun arresting illegal immigrants
I love this story.
in defiance of
they
the
started
federal
arresting
government.
him today.
Oh,
Yeah. And I'm telling you, like,
that's cool.
yeah, we're a grain of sand being added to the heap. At some point, the federal government either has to admit it's been defeated. Look, I'll put it this way.
By Texas, which is kind of perfect.
Well, that's it. The dam has broken. The dam is broken.
Okay.
We are not necessarily looking at Fort Sumter, although I wasn't the one who made this point. I can't remember who they made this point. I think it might have been like Benny Johnson. I'm not sure. That I think it was Benny. He was saying that the federal, the start of the first Civil War, the federal government is saying this is our territory. The South is saying no, it's not. And there's a standoff. Nobody really dies, but we call that the start. Right now in Texas, the federal government is saying Texas is breaking the laws, breaking federal law, barring them from access to the river, and they have no authority to enforce border issues. And Texas is saying we're going to do it anyway. The dam is broken because now there's one of two scenarios. The first scenario is the federal government loses, has no authority, no control, and the confidence in the federal government's ability to enforce the border is gone. Arizona makes the next move.
Which they should be doing. I mean, with Katie Hobbs, they won't. But
If the federal government loses here and they are not able to enforce with force, the states win, and that diminishes the power of the federal government substantially to where other states will start taking similar action. How do we know this is going to happen? Because when California started defying federal law with their sanctuary cities and sanctuary states, we then saw the emergence of gun sanctuaries where several jurisdictions started saying we will no longer enforce these federal gun laws. So Texas, for instance, has completely eschewed the ban on suppressors, and they say, and fact check me before you go out and buy suppressors. But my understanding is if you're in Texas, you can buy a Texas suppressor, and they don't adhere to federal law. So it's the ATF who have to come and stop you from doing it.
Oh, wow.
The other path is the federal government decides the only way to assert their authority and prevent the breakdown of confidence is to, by force, stop the Texas National Guard and law enforcement from prohibiting them. That would mean an escalation of force from federal law enforcement against Texas National Guard or police.
Well, what's interesting too, though, is the border agents that Biden deploys. What they typically do is they're not there on the line dealing with the border. They're mostly just processing people. That's all they're doing. So the National Guard went in and said, we're going to actually close the border here. And the law that Texas passed was interesting because it said that it's illegal to enter Texas crossing an international border illegally.
Yeah.
So they made illegally crossing the border
Illegal again.
Illegal again.
Well, let me pull this up. This is CNN. Texas authorities have begun arresting migrants at a public park near the U.S.-Mexico border, official says. Texas authorities arrested migrants at Shelby Park in Eagle Pass, Texas, late Wednesday evening and charged them with criminal trespassing, marking the first arrests of migrants since the state took control of the area at the U.S.-Mexico border last week, an official said. The arrests were announced by Lieutenant Chris Oliveras, how do you pronounce it? Oliveras, at the Texas Department of Public Safety on social media, where he also posted videos on X. We get it. Single adult migrant men and women were taken into state custody, while migrant families and children were transferred to U.S. Border Patrol. I'm hearing that the Texas planes and buses that were shipping migrants to various cities have either stopped or slowed. Around the same time, the state has begun arresting the illegal immigrants. Okay, my friends, social breakdown. The federal government declares the international borders are their authority. And I believe that is the case, but they are also obligated under Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution to defend states from invasion. The federal government is facilitating invasion, not doing their duty. So Texas says, we no longer adhere to what you are claiming. Texas is now solely enforcing the law on their border, passing a law saying that they have the authority and jurisdiction on this international border. The federal government sues them saying, no, you don't. Texas deploys armed National Guardsmen to bar federal agents from the border, from the river. And we have the makings of the grains of sand are being added to the heap of secession.
Wow. So
does this escalate to the point where Texas eventually declares independence? It may. All of these small moments when, I always use this analogy. How many grains of sand make a heap? Mm-hmm. What we are watching right now is Texas asserting its own authority over an international border. Texas deploying armed soldiers to bar federal agents from what the federal agents claim is their jurisdiction. If the federal government backs down and gives up, this just shatters confidence in the federal government. Yeah. If they want to, so what does that mean for other states? Next, you get New Mexico, Arizona, other states being like, well, the federal government has no authority anymore. They've given up. Yeah. And they'll start asserting their own authority. Or the federal government shows up in force with guns and says, stand down. And if that happens, we have to ask, will Texas stand down or will Texas say, F you, no?
Right.
And where does that lead?
That's really fascinating.
I feel like we're Americans. It seems like America as a whole is going back to, I don't want to make it seem like it's radical, but kind of its roots and its culture of just keeping the government accountable. And if you won't take care of this nation, we will. Because that's kind of how the founding fathers were. I feel like just Americans as a whole, they're going to start making the founding fathers proud. And that's not saying to start a revolution or anything, or even no promotion of it. But
stand on your rights.
Yeah, they're standing on the rights, and they're telling the government they've taken too much power, give it back to the states.
I mean, this was Abbott's criticism of immigration for a long time now, that there are laws in the books that the federal government could choose to enforce, and they don't. In fact, they have let this become a increasingly burdensome problem for the states to deal with, and then telling states they can't do anything to stop it. And so I think in some ways this rise of, a state governor that is willing to do something is inspirational. I think it's more likely that border states would follow suit. And I actually wonder if it's going to be the states along the northern border they're going to do something.
Well, they should do something too.
Right. They're seeing a wave of immigration as well. I mean, at a certain point, it's a danger
Canadian?
to people.
There's the Canadian border's not doing well
People
either.
will fly to Canada and cross through the northern border.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The other thing too is a lot of what's going on in terms of family separation and just releasing migrant kids and releasing the people who travel with migrant kids, creating essentially a golden ticket for adults who bring kids across the border. It's not a law. It's a judge. It's a Flores settlement that went through in 1987 and then has been consistently challenged and back and forth, where I think it was it was under the Obama administration. There was this Judge Gee or maybe it's G in California, who said that because of the Flores settlement says that you have to release illegal immigrant children without any real delay, that meant that you also have to release the adults that came with them. So it created this golden ticket situation where the Border Patrol, the DHS, is required to release children under this agreement. And if they're releasing children, they have to release the adults too. And that's actually how the family separation thing happened, because under Obama, it was like, okay, you have to release illegal immigrant children. So let's separate them so that we can release the children and detain the adults that came with them. And then that was changed. So I don't know why everyone's holding to this ruling by a radical judge. Why is that what's being upheld? It's pretty weird.
I think we're about to start seeing a lot of positive domino effects. From the last about 12 years, we've seen a negativity of domino effects, and nothing, I don't care what someone does with their sexuality, but there has been a downward spiral in America after Obama legalized homosexual marriage. At first, I do distinctly remember the LGBTQ community simply only asking for the right to be married. After that, they started asking for representation in television, and it went from television to kid TV shows, and went from kid TV shows to going to preschools and etc. So it's a domino effect of just legalizing the marriage itself, or even
it wasn't Obama; it was the Supreme Court.
Yeah,
but it was in the Obama administration.
Obergefell. Yeah, it was Obergefell. The decision.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
Look, the domino effect, the slippery slope. These things are real. They happen, and so everything we're seeing now with Texas on the border. I want to make sure it's clear. I'm not actually predicting anything. I'm saying if X, then Y. And what I said several months ago is if Texas is arguing that the federal government has abandoned them, sooner or later, they're going to send law enforcement to go and do this themselves. Well, then they did. It's not so much that I'm saying like I have a vision and I see this. There's multiple things that could happen here. Federal government could win a lawsuit. Texas backs down. We have no idea. But we can say these things all move in one direction. So we're going to see Texas, now they're making arrests. Sooner or later, we're going to see the federal government retaliate in some way. You have no authority to detain these people. Could it escalate to the most extreme? What if the federal authorities go to local jails and bring guns and say, transfer these people into our custody? Texas says, no, you're going to release them into our state. And the federal government says, we don't care what you think, release them now into our custody. These things could happen.
But they don't have any jurisdiction over state prisons. They only have jurisdiction over federal.
The argument is that the state has no jurisdiction over illegal immigration. Yeah. So the federal government would be saying, you have illegally detained people that are under our jurisdiction.
Could you really see Biden's DHS being like, we're going to get the guns? All they know is lawfare. That's what they do consistently.
I don't know. Perhaps it's very, very simple, and the answer is no. The federal government backs down. If that's the case, other states are going to say then the federal government is impotent and incapable of enforcing anything.
How many times have they backed down?
So.
Truthfully, how many times can I remember? Can we remember in recorded history?
The federal government backing down?
Yeah, our government backing down.
Well, I remember like Ruby Ridge. You know, I remember the federal government refusing to back down to such a degree they kill a bunch of kids at
Waco, yeah,
and Waco as well, yeah. So I suppose the issue here is that we're dealing with state law enforcement versus federal. But again, 1860, right? 1861, more precisely. That ideally and hopefully, Donald Trump gets elected. He then goes to Texas and says, our forces are at your disposal. And then there's no longer animosity and there's no longer a clash. But right now, the Biden administration is facilitating an invasion and facilitating illegal immigration and human smuggling. Texas is trying to do its best to stop the criminal activity of the Biden administration, but only insofar as it affects their state. Sooner or later, we have to reconcile with this country that the Biden administration is a criminal enterprise facilitating human smuggling, and they've been doing it for years.
They have been. It's like 10 million people.
They're flying children on planes. They are smuggling to such an extreme degree. They're trafficking children.
Yeah, from Venezuela and all over the place.
At night.
Yeah, it's interesting too because you have the Democrats freaking out when Trump says that there's going to be a mass deportation event and people are going to be held before they're deported. And then you have Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, saying, you know what we're going to do because there's all this crime around the illegal immigrant shelters. We're going to put in curfews at these shelters. And it's like, so you're making a detention camp for migrants where they can't leave, right? That's what you're doing. So Eric Adams is going to do it. And one thing that's interesting, too, is we see that happening a lot with Democrat mayors where they are forced to use the same tactics that everyone's decrying. What's his name? Johnson in Chicago as well.
I wonder how extensive their motives of getting to the country is. I know they also dig to go from underground and come back up. I just wonder how organized they have it now. Just the illegal
It's
immigrants.
very
to get into our
organized
country.
because all they have to do is show up and they're let in.
Well, yeah, you have that. Yeah.
Like, who needs a tunnel? They're just going to open the door. You see Border Patrol like putting ladders up to like help people climb
Yeah,
over
that
There's a
stuff
video
is
of Border
nuts.
Patrol opening the gate and
Yeah.
letting them in.
Yeah.
onto private property
It's
too.
nuts.
Because they'll say
Evil.
it's too dangerous. Like we have to help them because otherwise they might fall and hurt themselves. No.
I want to see Texas National Guard start arresting the CBP guys.
It'd be interesting. I think it's more likely that the federal agents. I would like to see them defect to the state level. I would like to see them leave their jobs. I mean,
Oh,
obviously
wow.
they work in an industry. You know,
That'd be interesting.
if your expertise is working on the border, just go to the agency that's actually enforcing the law and that's allowing you to.
I do not understand how there are men and women in law enforcement in the state of Texas who are actually on the ground dealing with this every day, and they have not reached the point where they're just like, we got to start arresting these feds. They are human traffickers. I don't care if they're wearing a badge. They are human traffickers, and they are armed. It's time to start arresting them for facilitating human trafficking.
It is human trafficking directly. And the cartels advertise on TikTok and Facebook. And and there was just a story that we were looking at the other day. Taylor Hansen did it, where it turns out that
Cops are
Catholic
helping.
charities
Oh, yeah, that one.
contracted cops in San Antonio to like facilitate human smuggling and human trafficking.
Watch Taylor Hansen's reporting on Tenet Media. We have the Culture War show tomorrow morning on Tenet Media, but Taylor Hansen has uncovered a lot. Police officers using public equipment to facilitate human trafficking. I mean, dude, it is insane. I just don't understand. I really don't. We are watching abject evil. This is not like a cop took a bribe. These are police officers in their vehicles using public equipment to protect and facilitate human smuggling operations. This is not me being cute. Human trafficking, okay, strong language. Human smuggling, definitive, 100%. There was a story I pulled up from the DOJ from several years ago where two guys in the military went to prison for transporting illegal aliens. We now have the entirety of the Biden administration
The whole
facilitating the whole DHS. And I'm just, okay, I get it. Perhaps Texas briefed their guys and said, guys, we got to do this one very, very carefully to avoid dramatic escalation, but here's the move we're going to make. If I was in Texas Sheriff's Department or National Guard or whatever, I just walk up to a CBP guy and be like, put your hands behind your back. I don't care. I'm just, you know what, man, people always make excuses for cops. Always make excuses. They say, oh, you know, cops can't choose what law to enforce. Okay, if that was the case, all of these guys would be in jail in Texas the moment a CBP. Look, let me ask you guys something. If you're in a cartel gang and you're seen driving around a cartel vehicle and you're armed, do you think the cops are gonna go, well, he's not doing anything, so I'm gonna leave him alone? Or do you think they're gonna be like, that's a cartel vehicle and that guy's got a gun? We're going to pull him over and investigate. This is cartel activity. Yeah. If you were part of, like, let's say Al-Qaeda, okay, a big ISIS truck with an ISIS flag is driving through Texas and a bunch of guys with guns are mounted on the back. Do you think the cops are going to be like, I can't really enforce anything against these guys? They're at the very least going to investigate and say probable cause. ISIS is a terrorist organization. So that gives us the probable cause right to stop them. Turns out you have right to keep and bear arms. You have right to free speech. We got something interesting going on here. But terrorist organizations are a line. If local law enforcement at state level knows that all of the CBP and federal law enforcement have been facilitating cartel activity and human smuggling, for what reason do they decide I'm not going to even stop and question these guys?
Yeah.
It is because they're like, well, he's wearing a badge. Yeah, if a clown walked up to you wearing a badge, I'd say screw off. At a certain point, we need the law to be enforced. They're doing it. I can respect it, but I don't see why they're giving a free pass to the criminals in the Biden administration who've been facilitating this.
I agree. That's why I think that it's so bizarre that you won't even have the Republicans in Congress bring up the potential impeachment against Mayorkas. MTG keeps saying, like, let's impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. He's destroying
They're
our
holding
border.
all the hearings right now.
Yeah, they're holding hearings, but they haven't gone for it, and I don't know why. They could have had him out of office.
Yeah.
10 months ago. They could have had
Several
him
people have
office
introduced
a year ago. Yeah, it's
motions
happened.
to it. It's happened multiple. I think it's happened at least. I can think of
But they can't-
maybe 4 times.
They can't get a vote on it.
I don't know why. I mean, it just seems like the most obvious thing. I also don't understand why, in a show of good faith, the Biden administration wouldn't be like, "Okay, Mayorkas, you got to step down because we have angered everyone." Like they could
Because
easily
they want
also
it.
rotate,
But they want it.
But they could fake you out with like, "Oh, well, we listened to you. We're trying to compromise." Because their thing always is Republicans aren't willing to compromise. We just heard this from JB Pritzker the other day. He was like, he put that complaint to Abbott in the
You mean when he
newspaper.
begged Greg Abbott to stop sending
Yes,
illegal
he was like,
immigrants
"Stop
to
sending them
Illinois?
because you don't respect humanity, and I can't believe you would do this, and it's cold here." So agree to a bipartisan solution, right? Like they are always saying Republicans are the ones who aren't willing to compromise. When for Republicans, this is a hard issue. You have to close the border.
You have to close the border. And it's interesting that you had Chuck Schumer saying that there would be no border deal without money for Ukraine. It's like that
These
makes
people are pure
absolutely
evil.
no sense.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, my
ludicrous.
friends, there is a solution before us. In this story from the Post-Millennial, Teen Vogue says Biden and Democrats are losing Gen Z support, claims they may not vote at all. I'm sure all the Republicans would absolutely accept either they don't vote or they vote for Trump. And then we have this from Vox.com. What Democrats panic over young voters misses. Okay, sure, whatever. The point is, even Vox is acknowledging Democrats are starting to freak out because more and more polls are coming out that somehow a 77-year-old Republican white man has garnered majority support among the youth vote.
Believe it.
It has been throughout my life. The youth vote is always a bunch of naive young Democrats.
That's how we got Obama.
Yeah, Obama's like, you vote for me, I'm gonna not blow kids up. And then I was like, okay, sounds good to me. And then,
Then
he's
he blew
like,
kids
like,
up.
just
and then as soon as he got in, he was like, huh, psych, blow them up. Too many of them.
I can believe it. It's super believable because I just see a lot of the young kids. Their whole culture is like based. Like I see a lot of them, just the most average kid. They like being base, and being base is kind of like being what conservatives would consider like not unhinged, but they really don't give a f about what they say.
Yeah.
It's the most off the wall things that's considered base. Liberals would not approve of, and
Well-
majority of the youth like base culture.
There's this video of a young woman where she's like looking in the mirror, holding up her phone, and she's talking about how like, oh, you got offended because I said something? Well, that's too effing bad.
I love that you shared that.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it went viral. Young kids are seeing that kind of content mocking the woke going viral.
Yes,
They want to get followers.
You're right.
I watched one video where
So right.
some of it's super cringe. I'm sorry, guys. I get it. You're young. You're trying to find your shtick. And it's like this one dude, every single video is him sitting in his car screaming.
I like that guy. And
Right.
he sounds like Gilbert Gottfried.
Yeah. He's just like, why is it that all of my...
I think
And I'm
that's
like,
funny.
okay, like, I get it. It's like he's people are trying to... So
Do you mean the guy that sounds like Gilbert Gottfried?
it might be, I don't know. But it's like a younger guy. They're all trying to find their shtick. And
Yeah.
so he does this thing where he's like, why is everything so expensive?
Yeah,
Why-
that guy.
what's happening? And he's like, I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. And I'm like, you're a Republican. The moment you say,
Yeah.
I am not a Republican or a Democrat, you're a Republican. Those are the rules. I didn't make them up.
Unless you're Oliver Anthony, and then you're just irrelevant all of a sudden,
Yeah, that was interesting.
right? Talk about one-hit wonder.
Well, the thing, he actually had a handful of really great songs.
Yeah, I mean, they were not bad songs.
I
but
think the issue with him, and he's probably still enjoying a lot of success. Look, just because the one song was the biggest song in the world at the time, he found his stable base of support, and you just don't see him because you're not a country music folk fan.
And he had like a baby
But-
and stuff too, right? Like he might not be
sure,
as active.
but I will say this: he was really just a regular guy who did not understand that when he came out saying like I'm not, political, he was telling all of the people who promoted him back off.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
we all backed off for sure.
Well, also,
Good luck.
Democrats are always like, I am progressive, I am a feminist. Like they want you to know what their labels are, whereas it's
Because they have
everyone
to
else
be
who's like,
activists for their
Yeah.
whole every aspect of their lives.
and they wear it as their whole identity, right?
Right.
Whereas like you think for yourself, you might lean sort of conservative, you might think of yourself as a libertarian. Like if you have to look at me and say like, oh well, I'm not either one, then you're already not in the pool of people
Yeah.
who probably hate you.
Well, and the thing too with oh, you were going to say something, Dom. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I think these polls kind of also exemplify the amount of propaganda that Democrats push out, because in the summer of 2023, I don't know if you remember, one of the main things they were pushing in their campaigns was Joe Biden had a lot of the Gen Z behind him. He was hiring a lot of Democrat influencers as well, like Harry Sisson and other young ones, Chris Maury, and like this black guy. So it was like 8 young influencers came out of nowhere in the summer. All of them had the same message, almost copy and paste, say, Gen Z loves Joe Biden. Gen Z loves Joe Biden. They would do it about 2 times every 3 days. And they just started to vanish off. You can see that their audience has just withered away. So I can definitely see they were pushing that propaganda super hard, because they probably had these numbers before the general public.
Right, like Sisson is just gone. I haven't seen that guy.
Yeah,
post
and it's
anything.
just so much. It's just propaganda, and it was they were huge when they came out.
Right, yeah.
And it seems like, okay, maybe Biden do have Gen Z, and it just shows. I mean, I think these polls just a few months after the summer should just show people to give it some time over anything that the Democrats say.
You think Biden was basically trying to convince Gen Z?
He was trying to convince them, because
supporting.
I think they had those numbers. I think with the resources that Biden has, he was tipped off that, hey, it ain't looking good
So they're
for
trying
Gen
to
Z.
like turn the ship.
And that's why they brought Harry and all the other propaganda, and it still didn't work. He was getting ratioed nonstop. It was sad.
You know,
And
Some of it has to do with the,
I got
the Gaza thing.
Trump is one of the most punk rock presidents we've had in a really long time. And what I mean by that is clearly he is not punk rock in the pure sense of what punk rock is. What I mean is the fact that he's willing to insult people on TV, make fun of people for being fat.
Yeah.
He's punk rock in the sense of screw you. You know, you know what's really funny?
base. That's what they'll
Base,
say.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Go back to 1990. Donald Trump is the embodiment of F you, I won't do what you tell me. And Rage on behalf of the machine has become the F you, you better do what we tell you. So I kind of imagine if you're a young person and you had all these people telling you to be woke or else, and then Donald Trump is laughing and just pointing at the fat kid and making fun of him, you're like, that's fun.
Yeah.
Silly, irreverent. I can do what I want to do. Leave me alone.
Democrats somehow have created their own problem. It's sad, just through censorship and the forcing of all of the ideologies. It just isn't natural. These kids, they got common sense.
I'm just
Well, and
imagining.
they hate it. Like their teachers push this stuff.
Yeah.
When you have
Right.
teachers
Kids gonna be
pushing
kids. It's funny.
pride ribbons on everybody, and teachers saying like, "Let's all discuss our pronouns."
And you can't joke about it. Like,
Fastest
imagine being
way-
a kid that
fastest way
can't
to
joke
make it
about that. That's
uncool.
crazy.
Fastest way to make it uncool. Kids don't think that what their teachers want to do is cool.
No.
You know, like my son
like-
came home
And
with
they
some
don't want
stupid
anyone
assignment
to-
about how you have to. The assignment was to do a biography of a scientist that was not white or male.
What? Oh, for real?
like-
That's real?
He was
Yeah.
like, white male, that's who we're doing.
And I was like, "What the hell is this?"
crazy.
And he was like, "I don't know, Mom. This is so stupid."
Wait,
I
wait,
was
in
like,
New York or West Virginia?
West Virginia, Tim.
I've been saying, Cassandra's been warning about this. This is why it's so important what we're trying to do with West Virginia and Martinsburg, because these woke leftists it's a cult, and they move in, lie about their views, get elected to positions, and then start injecting this stuff into the schools.
That's right. There was another thing that happened a little bit before winter break where a group came in to talk about suicide prevention and started handing out the number for the Trevor Project. The Trevor Project, which is like, we're going to trans your kids. Yay. You know, that's their whole
Because
jam.
that's who they think is committing
my
suicide
goodness.
when actually it's young white males who are
Right.
committing suicide, right?
Right,
The
exactly.
group that the Trevor Project
Exactly.
probably wants to isolate or alter, fundamentally. I
Right.
think that's the craziest thing. We can acknowledge that suicide is a huge problem, but when you look at the numbers, they don't want to talk about who's actually committing suicide, and that's
right.
sad.
And
right?
it is, yeah, it is. And it is mostly like young men. And it's terrifying because, we need our young men.
Yeah.
I find it extremely concerning that the Democratic audience don't really talk about the suicide rates of transgenders when they are the main people that enable them. I mean, you would think they would care about all aspects of their health.
Well,
Yeah.
this is one of the most important things that I think needs to be talked about in the whole issue of the gender ideology stuff. The first thing I'll say is with the news being Sean Strickland, what the woke left has done, Pink News, for instance, they said that Sean Strickland said being trans is an infection. He quite literally didn't. He said the weak man who is an ally is an infection. He didn't say anything about trans people. He was actually talking about the journalist. But the issue I see is what I was saying earlier is I got no issue with trans people. I have an issue with people who are pushing people towards dangerous medical practices, or pseudo medical practices, which can result in a loss of life. So, for instance, when we had Lance from the Surfs on, I said that I believe there is a trans genocide, and it's the left that is pushing it, and I stand by that. They're trying to sterilize or the things they're offering up to trans people to a great degree, sterilize them, and that will prevent them from having children. Genocide doesn't just mean you go and you kill a bunch of people. One component of genocide would be to sterilize them, mass sterilization and eugenics. And so what's happening now is you have a young person who's suffering gender dysphoria, and they immediately jump to, let's give them irreversible drugs and surgery, which will prevent them from having families in the future. It seems like some like for whatever reason they want to do this, maybe it's because they're misguided, maybe it's because they're evil. But as you referenced suicide, the point I made was, if the suicide rate of trans individuals suffering from gender dysphoria is around 48%, I believe, right? Was that the number? 40 to 50%. But the desistance rate at best for trans children is 65%. It could be as high as like 95% or whatever. That would mean that Democrats are increasing the probability of suicide in children. Because if you leave the child alone, there's a 2-to-1 chance they desist and puberty cures them of their dysphoria. They then push them to transition, giving them a 50-50 chance of dying, which means the greater chance of survival is leave them alone. This is according to the studies that are available right now from the major academic institutions. Why then are they pushing it? I think they're evil.
And they make money off of it, right? It's more effective to have someone who's suffering and dependent on the medical system. I think ultimately it's they
Create
need
new victims.
Right. And if like we're talking about teenagers being defiant. So if you're a teenager who goes through surgery, who goes through whatever, your body's permanently disfigured, some might come out and say like, no, this is wrong. But a lot of them will just suffer, but then also feel threatened and say like, no, you guys don't understand. I just have to keep trying, have to keep pushing. It becomes this thing. And they are trying to build people who will eventually support this movement because they know that to admit that they were wrong is ultimately to say that they have made the worst decision someone could make.
And admitting you wrong, I mean, the opposite. It's the opposite of submission. It's not even admitting it. So that is a submissive type of person that they're building, regardless. Because if they can't stand for themselves, they're submitting.
Yeah,
to the
I
system.
think that's what they want.
It is a low suicide rate even in the trans community. A study. This is from Lior Sapir in the City Journal, which I've referenced a bunch of times from last spring. A UK study found that the suicide rate among clinic-referred transgender identified youth was 0.03%, or 4 deaths out of 15,000 gender-distressed minors. In the U.S., where between 2.1% and 9.1% of youth now identify as trans, and where rates of diagnoses of gender dysphoria have skyrocketed, we are told the numbers of trans kids have always existed.
All right. Well,
in which case, why haven't we seen a suicide epidemic?
Now, what's the suicide rate for trans adults?
I don't know.
You want to pull that one up because either we're dealing with false statistics, the argument being that suicide rates are really high and that's what we're trying to prevent. That's what Jack Dorsey said to me on the Joe Rogan podcast. Or the issue is that kids who are suffering from gender dysphoria have an extremely low suicide rate, and the argument for them to receive this surgery or medication is based on a false premise.
It says, this is the Williams Institute. I'm not super familiar with this. It's out of UCLA. It says 44 reported suicidal ideation, 7% suicide attempt, and 21% non-suicidal self-injury over their lifetime.
Well, what's the percentage? What's the suicide percentage?
42% have attempted it. 56% have engaged in non-suicidal.
We'll clarify then. Attempted suicides at 42% for trans adults, meaning these kids don't. If that data is correct, these kids are not trying to do this.
Right.
But if they become adults, that actually is the point I'm making. You are increasing the likelihood they will attempt suicide by putting them through these transitions.
Yeah. Also, it doesn't really. The Lior Sapir makes another argument about the way that the data is collected as being also a problem.
Yeah,
So,
I would believe that.
Well, we'll jump to this story. We have a tweet from the man himself, Sean Strickland, who has been lighting up the internet as he's preparing for his fight at UFC 297 this Saturday. Super excited. Everybody should be watching this fight. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm very excited. He said, hate speech isn't real. I didn't know I was fighting in North Korea. And he posted this video. Sean is for the people. Oh, man, you got to hear this.
But when have you ever seen a UFC champion, George St. Pierre, or anybody else stick up for you fucking guys? I fucking do it. I do it. I am not chasing the Chinese check mark of Nike. I don't give a fuck about that.
Bravo.
I care about you guys. I care about you guys being free. I care about you guys having freedom of speech. I give a fuck about you guys. And I'll tell you what, you guys are fucking awesome, and I cannot wait for this man to fucking go to war for you fucking guys. Let's go.
No, they're cheering. He's wearing a shirt. It's got the Canadian maple leaf, says Strickland, and it says "Make Canada Great Again." This guy's a warrior, man. This is, I see a lot of people posting after his previous comments, this is how you push back on the machine. He's the big ask. He is the pendulum swing, and it's epic. So I say we should be supporting him. And that does bring up an interesting issue of Bud Light. Bud Light is is on the verge of collapse. Did you guys know this?
Yeah.
The strike. You heard about the strike coming up?
No, there's a strike too.
Yes. Yeah. And someone even super chatted saying that earlier in the show, they said they work at a Bud Light bottling plant and the strike is absolutely going to happen. Some reports are saying there will be no beer on the shelves come March. You look, Bud Light doesn't want to, Anheuser, they don't want to give people raises. They don't want to give them the guarantees they're asking for. They've abandoned the negotiations. I wonder why it is they're backing away from the negotiations. Could it be that they're down 30% in sales?
I think it really shows that conservatives have buying power, real, true buying power at a level that we haven't seen in a long time.
Maybe it's not so much the issue is conservative anymore. It's that regular people stopped buying the product.
I think that's a big part of it. I think there are people who are active in politics and took part in the boycott because they believe in it and they got caught in the movement. But I think there were a lot of people who just said, like, this is going too far and I don't like it anymore.
Just the most, the most standard American.
Right, the standard American. And I think that's almost more impressive because they're harder to reach. I mean, this is what any kind of political strategist will tell you. Trying to get someone who's not that engaged, who's moderate, to go out to the polls is impossible. But they're all voting with their dollar this way. And it's not necessarily for party, it's against ideology. And I find that really kind of inspirational going into the next year.
Yeah,
It's gonna be wild if there's no Bud Light come March. Like the strike happens and, dude, you combine the boycott. Right now with what everything Sean Strickland is saying, Bud Light's in the hot seat because you've got, Pink News running these articles saying that he called trans people an infection, which he didn't. But he said, I'll tell you about Bud Light. Bud Light's going to have to say something. But I think the woke left are going to try everything in their power to avoid this fight. But more importantly, you combine the drop in sales with the workers being upset they're not making enough money and not getting the guarantees they want. They stop making the beer. What happens if they stop making the beer? Nobody's buying the beer. What happens if no one buys the beer? You stop making the beer.
Yeah, so
wow.
Then the strike would be the final nail in the coffin.
Could you imagine if Bud Light just went belly up?
That'd be crazy.
And
I will.
And it would be all from Dylan Mulvaney.
I will say
and
this
it's
right
like
now.
an old historic American company. I mean, that's really fascinating.
Well,
to
isn't
me.
it owned by Anheuser? It's Anheuser-Busch, right? What is
Anheuser-Busch is like, and it's all based in St.
parent.
Louis.
If
But it's, I think,
Bud Light
above them.
goes as a brand goes completely under. I'll make this broad. If Bud Light as a brand, I don't think Anheuser-Busch, but Bud Light goes belly up, and they're just out like the Bud Light brand is done, or in a much broader sense, if Bud Light drops off as a major brand, such though that it appears more like an ancillary brand no one really pays attention to. I'm being very broad with this to mean like if Bud Light is wiped out of the top market share, I will write a check for $10,000 to the charity of Matt Walsh's choice for telling me I was wrong on my Bud Light boycott position. Because look, the strike that's happening now, I believe is a product of the boycott. People aren't getting paid enough. They're getting angry they're not getting paid enough. Bud Light can't pay them more, ditches the negotiating table. And they're probably saying, we can't pay people more. Sales are down 30%. And the employees are like, then we're going to go on strike. There's a possibility they just go, you know what? Bud Light's dead. And if that happens, okay, I will write a check to a charity of Matt Walsh's choice. Shout out Matt Walsh. He's like, no, boycott's still on. My point was we should declare victory and put pressure on Bud Light to adhere to our worldview and our framing of the things. I still think that's true. Like with Sean Strickland coming out and saying these things, my point is to clap and cheer for Bud Light, saying thank you, Bud Light, for sponsoring UFC and Sean Strickland's message, to force them to publicly speak either in favor or against it, once again, creating a ripple effect in the boycott. Now, that being said, if all we had to do was sit back and just completely ignore them and that would result in the cascade effect of a strike and then a collapse, I will admit I'm wrong, and I will make a donation to a charity of Matt Walsh's choice.
What about if it goes belly up? What will other companies do? Would they be afraid to insert woke, marketing into everything?
Maybe we'd get some of those old 80s beer commercials
Yeah,
back
just
where
right
they're
back
like,
to what it was.
yeah, they're like on the river. There's a boat. Everyone's wearing
Victoria's
pastel
Secret.
shorts.
I don't know if you guys saw about in November, Victoria's Secret made a huge announcement. They were going back traditional.
Yeah.
That's right.
They were
Turns
like-
out no one wanted to buy lingerie after
crazy.
seeing it on a bunch of
Yo,
models.
did you
Who
hear
could have
about
thought?
Who would have imagined that?
did you hear about the smokeless Snoop thing? I tweeted about this. The Snoop Dogg campaign to sell the fire pits failed,
failure.
and apparently the CEO got removed or whatever. Let me just explain something to you guys. The idea that you would hire Snoop Dogg to sell outdoor equipment is the stupidest
So
thing I have
weird.
ever
It
heard.
was horrible.
Very
it was
wacky.
horrible. It was horrible because of the engagement. It took over the internet in terms of sales and engagement. It just felt, and I think the main problem is they mass promoted a product that cost a lot of money. I mean, that product is like,
It's not just that. It's like Snoop, his fans do not buy camping equipment. No, hold on.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got a lot of fans who buy camping equipment.
yeah, but no, they do not.
You want like Bear Grylls
Yeah.
to be announcing this because
Yes.
everybody who watches is gonna be like, I want one of those.
It's not like
Exactly,
the
target
big,
market.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not like
Yeah.
the big. They had those lighters that had the like extended flame, and it was Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart. that was like they did this like commercial pairing, and he was
Yeah.
selling them, and she's like, you can light candles, and he's like, or something else.
still did
Right,
And
that
it was,
works.
It was perfect.
And he
But like,
collaborated with her. It was
Yeah.
still a collaboration.
So-
and they like had a
They-
show.
yeah,
they were
they
like
were,
hanging
like-
out for a minute.
Yeah.
So I bring this up because Victoria's Secret is like, we're gonna sell lingerie using big fat models and ugly women, and then all of a sudden nobody wanted to buy their products anymore.
Yeah.
And it's because women and men want to look at attractive models and think I can be like that if I buy this
Right.
product.
That's why you buy. That's why you buy stuff. You buy stuff because you're like, oh, I want. I mean, they already did that. The advertising companies already told us when you buy our product, you have access to this lifestyle, and no one wants access to the lifestyle of being unable to get off your couch because your butt's too
Well,
big.
but it's not that. Like Victoria's Secret in particular, right? You've got all these big fat models and ugly women, and the average woman who's
and Megan
men.
Rapinoe.
So
too.
right, so yes.
No one
so
wants
so
to be
first,
her.
the woman who is buying Victoria's Secret, I imagine, I could be wrong, but I imagine is thinking, I want to be attractive to my husband, to my significant other. Here's this beautiful woman. She looks at that and says, "Wow, I could look like her if I buy that lingerie or whatever," and then she buys it. The man sees that woman and goes, "Yeah, my wife could look like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna buy it."
Yes, yeah.
Then you put a big fat woman on the wall, and the regular one looks at it and says, "I don't want to look like that."
There's
the other
actually
thing-
Yeah.
no. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it's beyond lingerie. They'll use all kinds of models, whatever. And I'm not always against this, but the thing is, if you're looking at an ad and something doesn't look good on someone, whether it be lingerie or a shirt or a skirt,
You don't wanna
I'm
buy
not
it.
gonna buy it because
There's
it doesn't
this
look good on
interesting-
It's like
Thank
selling.
you.
It's like selling Viagra and having the models being depressed. You know,
Right.
Viagra, they're always super happy, like
If
extremely
if
excited.
they're having a bad time, you're like, no, thank you.
Yeah, it's
There's
like
a thing too where when you're buying clothes online, you can check and see, and it will show you a model who's wearing any of the sizes, right? And the further you go up, you're like, oh, if I have to buy that size, I'm not buying this because that looks terrible.
No, for sure. I
Yeah,
mean,
no chance.
it almost works to the consumer's favor, being
Right.
like, maybe I should just skip
Let me
buying
just,
stuff.
I probably
save
have
my
stuff
money.
that looks good in my closet right now.
Man, I'll be really excited if Bud Light goes on strike and they just don't make any.
They just tank.
Yeah, because look, I talked about Fusion quite a bit. I mentioned this even like last week. I think I mentioned it the other day. I had a friend worked at Fusion, which is the ABC News Univision joint venture, all operating on investment. Yeah, this was like last night. And they were announcing negotiations to unionize. And I told my friend, you'll get fired in 2 seconds because your company does not make money. The moment you walk up to the president and say, all 300 employees want a 10% raise, he's going to say, you're fired. I'm shutting the company down because you don't make money. These people at Bud Light who are like, we're going to go on strike. The boss is going, you guys are not selling any product, okay? We are down 30%. We're not giving you more money. And if they say, then we won't make any beer, then they're like, okay, well, then we're done. That's the end. I can't imagine they would want to abandon Bud Light as a brand because it's such a long-standing iconic product. But at this point, I kind of think it's entirely possible with the upcoming strike, the perfect storm hits, and they just say, it's going to cost us $20 million to try and recover the lost product from the strike. The brand is already down 30%. It's being mocked relentlessly. We're not getting our customers back. Just stop the bleed. Stop throwing good money at bad.
It's imagine being that marketing manager who pulled the Dylan Mulvaney stunt and then got fired. She's never going to get a job again.
She's going to be in marketing, like college courses.
Yeah.
The great failure.
Great failure.
That
because she clearly didn't have an understanding of the brand at all.
There's that Quiznos commercial that no one ever forgot of the weird chinchilla things screeching. And you might be a little too young.
And I was like Amish. I was not allowed to watch TV growing up.
I'll pull it up. Quiznos.
I wasn't actually Amish, for clarification. I just had strict parents.
I bet all I have to do is search for Quiznos
wasn't
commercial.
allowed to watch Three's
Sponge
Company.
monkeys. Here, look at this. This thing right here.
What?
Yes, that's in my subconscious.
This is incredible.
Yeah. Okay.
What?
We
This
get it.
was make advertising great again. I mean,
was
this
this-
is just great.
It's pretty wild.
was a massively successful advertising campaign, and they teach about it in marketing courses as to why it worked, why it was so good, why everyone loved it. And I think, you know who they really hit with this? Midnight stoners, hungry, and they're like, man. And they're just staring at it like, what? But the real issue...
Children saw this and were like, hilarious.
It's
Let's go.
a
Adult
lot.
swim
It's a lot.
audience.
It's
Yeah.
that no one would forget it.
Yeah.
You watch it and you're like, what the did I just watch? They used to do this thing back in the day where in magazines, there's like a famous example of what they would do with ads is a woman, like a teenage girl on a swing, and she has 3 legs. 2 legs are going forward and there's a 3rd leg going backwards.
Creepy.
They would do a ton of things like this so that when you were flipping through, it would catch your attention.
Oh, like you double take and look at it longer.
Yep. And so this is exactly that. So, with Bud Light, maybe they were like, remember the Quiznos creepy sponge monkey things?
You're giving them way too much credit.
No, hold on. Hear me out. That lady, she publicly, she goes, we want diversity in Bud Light. Behind the scenes, she's like, remember that creepy, weird thing Quiznos did? Let's hire Dylan Mulvaney.
Oh, man.
He's
And
a
that
weird
was-
chinchilla.
Maybe they were thinking that creating some kind of shock content would generate massive buzz and attention to create. I bet they were thinking controversy good.
I feel like they just took their core audience or their core consumers for granted. They said we can do whatever and they'll buy it no matter what. So we might as well just push to get a really progressive audience in here.
Didn't that start initially like in February? The Mulvaney thing is reaching.
Yeah.
If it did, that really should show the people that it only takes about 12 months, no matter how powerful the brand is. If them really like getting their pockets hit, it takes
And
a real toll.
The
a real toll.
Mulvaney was already very distasteful to a lot of people at the time.
Yeah, it was.
He ended up with
I think it was
with
around
Bud Light.
February. Yeah.
Like Mulvaney ended up at the White House talking to Joe Biden about how important it is to make
Yeah,
sex
yeah,
changes
yeah,
for
yeah.
kids.
Oh, man, that
And
was
it's like,
worst era, man.
why are you talking about this? Like, you want the guy who's pushing for kids to have sex changes to boost your beer? That doesn't make any sense.
It was super weird. And I think even people who
A lot of beer drinkers want grandkids. You know,
a
they don't want
lot of
that.
them do. It's one of their main concerns. They open a beer and they're like, "But when am I having grand?" No,
That's what I do.
So let's jump to this story from the Post Millennial, which is currently loading. Here we go. Resurfaced footage shows United CEO performing Lady Gaga drag routine at company Halloween party. Okay. For a variety of reasons, I am going to hereby announce, where possible, Timcast will no longer use United for any of its travel. I mean it. So we book, I think we have 1.5 flights per day for this show.
Dang.
And so the reason it's 1.5 is that guest flies in, same day guest flies out.
Yeah.
So that actually, I think we might be doing 2 per day. Two flights per day, not 1.5, 2 per day, and 1 or 2 on the weekends. And then Pop Culture Crisis has a guest on the weekends. We don't book flights for every single guest. Some people come from DC. It's one of the reasons we chose to be in the area, because a lot of higher profile political commentators are local.
Yeah.
Some people who live in like Philly can drive down. It's only a couple hours. So there's a wide range of areas that we're in, but typically we're flying people out every day. And I have already instructed the staff. I said, is it possible for us to completely ditch United Airlines? And we believe it is. I want to be careful on how I describe this, because when you're dealing with something as big as an airline, when there's actually very few, it may not be possible in some circumstances to say we won't use United. That's why I say where possible. However, I'm pretty sure American Airlines operates in all the exact same areas. That being said, the challenge with any kind of boycott is that, American Airlines, Delta, and all these brands are doing the exact same garbage. The issue here is that the CEO himself has advocated for illegal activities. That's right. Commit crimes. The CEO of United has advocated for hiring on the basis of race, which is a violation of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. That's illegal. And so long as this company has a guy doing a drag Lady Gaga routine where he celebrates breaking the law and being racist, we are not going to utilize their airline. Now, I know. In 10 seconds, someone's going to point at American Airlines and they're going to say, look at all these bad things they're doing. And to which I say, okay, Spirit Airlines it is. But I don't know.
Some of our guests are like,
Yeah, I
we don't
said
want
I
to go
don't-
anymore. We'll pay for our own travel.
It's funny. I
Yeah.
was looking at the United thing, and I said this morning, even tweeted, I said, I don't really feel that safe no more being on their planes after seeing that.
It's a rough
I don't know where
time
their
for air
priorities are.
travel.
Kind of wacky.
It is, isn't it? I mean, like,
I'm very nervous.
the all-female, like, black flight crew, it's like, man, that just don't look right, man. It's not right. I want a man at the front of it. Honestly, I don't care.
And
Let
I
me-
want the
man
doors.
flying plane.
I want
I'll
the
say
doors
this.
to stay on the plane.
and it'll
my
sound
standards
racist.
are crazy high.
It'll sound racist and it'll sound kind of coonish, but honestly, I'm safer feeling if there's a white man flying my plane, only because every time I've flown, it's been a white pilot. I like what I'm used to. It's what I'm used to.
The issue here is these diversity hire practices make people, they exacerbate racism.
Yeah.
Because if you say we are going to hire lower on the ladder to be diverse, the assumption then is the pilot you have who's not white must be not as skilled.
Yes.
And that's not fair. Could you imagine being like the best pilot in the world and you're black, but then everyone's like, yeah, he's probably not that good. I'll be like, come on, man. Like, I worked my ass off for this, and then these far leftists come in and start making the claim that everyone's got to hire lower down on the talent pool. They're making the problem worse.
Yeah.
There was a Gallup poll that said 52% of Black Americans oppose affirmative action, and they like the affirmative action ban that the Supreme Court did.
I hate Democrats, man.
Yeah, well,
Democrats talk to black people. The Yale study, remember this one?
yes, they
They
talk down to people. They talk down to Black people.
But talk down, is that like the right way to phrase it? They dumb down their language and act stupid when they're talking to black people.
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
I had a-
they've conditioned us to think that way and speak that way. They've made that our language, that dumbed down slang type language, that simpler type terms, the non-political verbiage, really.
like when they were pushing Ebonics.
Yeah.
I
Look at
remember
this.
that.
Which
Look at this. This is from 2018. White liberals dumb
Yeah, that's
themselves
right.
down when they speak to black people, a new study contends. I despise these people
That's
so
crazy.
much, dude.
I mean, I think that's definitely true. Just having been in
It's crazy.
lefty circles for my entire life, that I think that's definitely true. I had a friend tell me that she preferred the racism of the South to the racism of the North. She was like, at least in the South, you know that they're racist. They say that they're racist, then they treat you normally. In the North, they say they're not racist, and then they're racist at you.
Okay,
This
but
is-
then the Scientific American ran this article this year saying black children who speak African American English are routinely misdiagnosed with speech disorders. So they're saying like,
Everyone's misdiagnosed with disorders these
sure,
days.
of course, but also there's this level of like this institution, which because we know educators are predominantly left leaning. They're saying you're supposed to act this way culturally, but also we're misdiagnosing you. I mean, this is like the most conflicting information to give, especially young children. The way you speak is okay sometimes, but also in school, except maybe we think it's wrong.
And
so
then
maybe we
they
think it's
complain
not.
about code switching.
Yeah,
It's like
it's
there's
crazy.
It's all mixed messages. Yeah.
I
White-
just thought that was a crazy headline.
When I went to Sweden, I said it was one of the most racist places I've ever been to.
Oh, wow.
And everyone was shocked, but they're also lefty and they're like progressive. And I'm like, yeah. And they put all their migrants into enclaves where they separate them, brag about how not racist they are, and then don't hire them. I'm like, it is this air of I'm such a better person, I'm not racist. And then when it actually comes down to practice, they're like, oh no, get away from me.
Yeah.
That's what we see with white liberals in the United States, even. But going back to United, here's the video. We'll play it for you. I know you guys don't want to watch it, but you're gonna have to. So okay.
How would you respect someone who like if this was your boss and this is what you were looking at.
Now, this was a Halloween part. This was like a Halloween thing, but it was still a company Halloween thing.
It's just
Okay, I
weird.
got to be honest. I really don't care that the dude is doing Lady Gaga drag stuff. It's like whatever, man. I guess. I think Lady Gaga makes great pop music. More power to her. If this guy, gets his rocks off by dressing like a woman and dancing around in front of his employees, hey, I'm libertarian. Just keep the kids out of it. The issue is that he's in an interview with Axios bragging about how he intends to break the law. He's sitting there being like, I'm a criminal and a racist at the same time, and I want to cause harm to this country. I'm like, dude, screw you. This is just like, okay. I said this. I personally boycotted United long before we knew the CEO was some weirdo. You know what I mean? Some racist.
Well, because United
guy.
is not good. I have flight credits with them, and once
yeah.
I'm using them up, and then we're done.
I just feel like
don't fly United, man. I'll tell you, we were flying back from I think it was I can't remember where we were. We were in California. I think it was when I went to Tijuana for the medical stuff, and then on the way back over the weekend, we stopped in Vegas. That's what happened. When we were flying back from Vegas, United at 3 a.m. switched my plane ticket to a different plane without telling me. So when I showed up at the airport, my ticket wasn't working. I had to get a different ticket.
Bad.
And then they put me from first class, a ticket I bought, and they put me into the back, into the basic economy seats.
That's crazy.
And they still charge you for first class?
As far as I know, I never got, I attempted a chargeback saying I did not buy these tickets. I want a refund. I want my money back. I don't know what happened with it, to be clear. I think I got a refund. I'm not sure, but I think I did. But I'm sitting here thinking, like, how is it that I paid all this money, and now all of a sudden the Chargers stole my credit card? I'm on a totally different plane to a different city, in a different seat I didn't pick, and my flight was still flying out on schedule. The issue was that the flight, so it was like Houston to DC, and the flight I was supposed to be on in Houston was delayed. So they took it upon themselves to move me to without telling me. And I'm like, I could have just gone to Houston and then opted for a flight there.
Right.
Just because my flight was delayed does not. I was livid. It's insane that they would do that. They put me on a flight from Vegas to Denver to DC.
That's annoying.
And they do it because they're probably thinking, we don't want people sitting in the airport. If we can get them to their destination, just do it. Don't ask them. Screw United. Do not fly United. If you do, you're supporting, racists. You don't want to be racist, do you? Right? Do you, Hannah Claire?
Why are you asking me? Wow. No, I'm just kidding. The thing is, I can't take this person seriously. Like, I get it. He can do whatever. It's not that I don't want him to not do whatever brings him joy. It's just like, if this is your boss, and like, I get it's a company Halloween party, but like,
It's about choices.
I
Like,
don't know. Like,
that's just, if he chooses to represent himself that way, how does he represent his airline?
When
I
your
think that's a good
Boeing,
point.
when your Boeing Max 737-9 is crashing, the last thing that's going to go through your head is going to be this video.
that's horrifying. I'd hate that.
Yeah, that is horrifying. I fly a lot for work. I travel a lot, and I've been increasingly wary of air travel.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, can I just drive across the country? What if we just do that?
Do you remember COVID when
What if
people
we
road
just
tripped
drive around?
all kinds of places?
Yeah, but I was flying during COVID because the airports were empty. The only people you ever saw in the airports were wearing MAGA hats, and you'd be like, hey, what's going on?
Oh, wow.
No, it was cool. There was nobody on the
I never
flight,
flew
and it was
during that
just a
time.
bunch of conservatives and Trump supporters flying around the country being
That's
like,
cool.
it's cheap.
Cheap
Mark
plane tickets,
Cuban's
yeah.
debating people online about like diversity and stuff, but there's one point that Mark Cuban cannot ever refute. Publicly stating your intention to hire someone based on race is a criminal act. It's like it's admission of guilt in the intention to commit a crime. We have a law in this country that's been there for 60 years that you cannot discriminate on the basis of race. And Mark Cuban's like, no, it's a good thing. Okay, well, look, it's really simple. If you got an issue with what Mark Cuban is saying, sue him. It's about time everybody who's sick of the diversity quota stuff starts suing. The moment any company, okay, so first you need standing. So if there's a company that says, we're only, let's say you guys listen, you're listening. Okay, tell your friends this. You work for a company, right? They say we got a new position or we're promoting, but it's for people of color. File a lawsuit. You will win in 2 seconds. You'll put 10 grand in your pocket. It is illegal what they are doing. You cannot do this. There's you see this all the time with like housing. It was a big deal because on Craigslist, there are a bunch of women who say like no men allowed. And you cannot discriminate in housing, and it causes a lot of problems. There are guys who sue bars. The bars will have ladies' night, and they'll say 20% off all drinks for women. And so there's like this old guy. He's like there's an older guy who's in his late 50s who just goes around the country suing these bars. He instantly wins. You know why? Because the bar gets served with a lawsuit, and they say, "What is this? We're being sued for having ladies' night." And their lawyer says, "Yeah, that's illegal. You should pay him." And they'll be like, "He wants 10 grand." I'll be like, "You should pay him because you're going to lose and it's going to cost you more than that." And they write him a check and then they cancel ladies' night. If that's been going on for 20 years,
All I can think of is John Lovitz.
anybody who works for United right now should be filing a lawsuit, calling a lawyer and saying, the CEO on Accuse said they have quotas for people of color. I feel like I am being held back and not being given a raise because of my race, blah, blah, blah. The company has explicitly stated, the CEO, they illegally discriminate in the workplace. Sue them.
Women or people of color, so they just classify both of them into like either or.
Yeah, that's
just kinda
how the
disingenuous to
Civil
me.
Rights Act is written. It's
Yeah, but that's
and then
still
now it's retro.
disingenuous.
Yeah, it is, and now it's retroactively gender identity is part of
crazy.
it. Yeah.
Oh man.
So everywhere it says
But I'll-
protections for women, it's protections for gender identity.
That makes me mad.
I wonder
Did
if,
you see the thing where like now you can pick non-gender or opposite gender on your passport? On your
That's gonna
American
work out
passport?
They've
really
been
well for
issuing,
you
like-
when you fly to other countries
Right.
and they
Oh,
arrest
wow.
you.
That's right. And that's what they said. That's what the State Department said. They were like, some countries won't honor this passport if you,
And they'll arrest you.
lie on it. And you can also
Right.
lie on your child's birth certificate now. You can put on X gender.
I'm for
Oh,
it.
this-
I'm for it. So look, I got to tell you, man.
You're like, just go as far as you can and make yourselves insane, like looking
No,
as
look,
insane as you can.
accelerated.
Creating a false document. When you go to the U.S., the purpose of a passport is to identify you to a foreign country. They will then choose to grant you access. Some countries have what's called a visa upon entry. A lot of them do. Some of them they don't have visa on entry, but they basically do. Like I think when I went to Egypt, that you show up, you walk up to there's a counter, and then they give you a visa, you pay the money, they stamp your passport. Then you go to immigration control, and that's not visa on entry because you had to go to a kiosk. A lot of countries, you walk right in. You walk up, you say, I got an American passport. They say, stamp, thank you for your money. Some countries don't do this and scroll. They go through your passport, identify you, and you have to have pre-approval before entering this country. If you lie on your passport and then apply for a visa and then show up, and the person at the border, customs or whatever for this country says you applied for a visa claiming to be a man but you're a woman, or you're a woman claiming to be a woman but you're a man, denied.
You are a liar.
You're in serious trouble.
You are
and
not allowed in.
Here's the other thing too. It's going to get really, really interesting because when you're trying to fly internationally to a country that requires a visa, the airlines will say, please, check in to prove you have the visa. Because if, say, United flew you to Brazil and you did not have a visa, guess who's responsible for bringing you there? Now, what happens if you go to United and, you're very clearly a man, but your passport says woman, and you have a visa, and the visa says the same thing because you apply online. You to get like a visa, you go through a broker and they send in the photos, and then Brazil will approve. Then you show up, and they go, "You lied. You are not a woman. You're a man. Why are you trying to sneak into the country?" It's going to be funny when United approves you. You land, and then they say, "United, why did you allow this person to lie on their visa and come to this country? You're responsible." And then United's like, "Oops." It's going to be crazy because look, there's a lot of countries that are not going to tolerate this. So you got all these right now. There's not that many people who do it. Like, what was it? The low thousands of individuals who've actually changed their passports. Mm-hmm. But this is why I tell people, like, some people even joke about it, like, "Oh, I'm going to get an X on my ID because it's funny." I'm like, nah, you shouldn't do that.
It's really dumb.
Yeah, because then one day you're going to be like hanging out and I don't know, you're going to go on vacation to like to Romania or something,
It's gonna
and
be a
someone's going to look at
problem.
your ID and they're going to be like, "This is fake. You're under arrest."
Yeah. Plus, I feel like we should like the gender thing before it goes away. We should be like, yes, put my gender on my passport because one day it'll be vintage and they will just remove it
vintage
entirely.
gender.
Like
it also though speaks to what we were talking about earlier with regard to trusting the federal government. How do you trust a government that allows fabricated federal documents? Like that's just crazy. Like, oh, the United States government puts out identification documents that are rife with lies and they approve that. Why would you?
it makes you question anything else they put out,
Yes,
right? Like,
any official document.
any official study, anything they fund.
Yes, which already were in trouble.
Which is like kind of how we operate anyways.
Yes.
Dude, this stuff's so weird. It's just it's social breakdown right before our eyes.
Yeah.
No one is asking you your gender because they're trying to insult you or your sex. Nobody's saying like, "Tell me what's in your underwear." That's the argument they make. Why do you want? I think it's really funny because they always try to pull this thing where they're like, "Tim wants genital inspections for sporting events," and I was like, "It's called a physical. Everyone gets one."
Yep.
Like, I don't know why you're calling it a genital inspection, but you get a physical. You go to the doctor to make sure you're okay. What are you talking about?
Every Olympic athlete ever is like, yes, sounds good. This is completely normal procedure.
It's funny because the left's argument is if we say males can't compete in female sports, it would require genital inspections. And I'm like, dude, they take their blood. They like extract the blood from these athletes, which is much more invasive.
Also, it's a lie anyway, because you don't need a genital inspection to tell the difference between a boy and a girl or a man and a woman. No. It's blatantly obvious just by looking at them, even from across the room. You can tell the difference.
That's all made up
between men and women.
Libby, I don't know what you're talking about. It's
so
all pretend.
Obvious. It's just obvious.
It just depends on how you feel. Like that, I was listening to some NPR interview when I was coming in today, and they were talking about like, oh yeah, I mean, gender is not real, and masculinity and femininity.
Gender is not real.
They were saying masculinity and femininity are made up concepts, but how can that be possible if we see the patterns repeated over and over again? I think this is the weird thing that all of these conversations are trying to do, which is that your brain desires to categorize and process information as fast as it possibly can, right? Yeah. And so the idea that we have identified a difference between males and females that's both physical but also psychological, it presents itself in behaviors like, this is super normal. It helps us advance as a society. Why would you want to be like, actually, it all doesn't matter. Actually, it all means nothing. Actually, if you assume any of this stuff, you're bigoted and hateful and you should question yourself. Like, why would you want there to be chaos unless you in some way thrive in the chaos or profit off it?
Yeah, or it furthers your own rewriting of reality.
And your own sense of discontent within yourself, right? Like you need other people to be miserable because you yourself are miserable.
Right. Misery loves company should be like the motto for trans.
I think that is one of the weird things that happens though. People who see people who are like thriving and doing
the
well
left?
Want them to suffer
the
also.
Left, the left entirely. Yeah.
The left entirely is misery loves company.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying.
What a horrible way to live, you know? Like that when Biden, I've talked about this a couple times, but when Biden did his first speech, he was saying, you know, we're the party of the future and they're the party that wants to divide and hates you. Anyways, I'm going to spend this whole time fear-mongering and telling you how this like MAGA extremist group is trying to ruin the government, and also I'm only going to talk about stuff.
I believe the shielding is what created the misery. They were shielded from everything, shielded from criticism, shielded from bullying, all of the stuff.
Well, it's because of cowards.
Yeah.
It's because of cowards. You know, I think of it like a fire, right? You've got a small fire in the kitchen, and when this first started, you needed only a few people who knew how and were willing to put the fire out and deal with it. Instead, everyone stood around and was just like, it's not my kitchen. I'm not doing anything. Yeah. And so they watched as the fire grew and grew and grew. And it got to the point until finally it caught the attention of people who tried to put it out. And now we're winning. We're pushing back on it. If just when all this wokeness started, the people who were working for these companies just said, shut your mouth, we would never have gotten to this point.
Yeah. And at the time, I remember because, you know, like I spoke out against trans stuff in theater in New York, and that didn't go super well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, didn't go super well. But no one else was willing to speak out, even my friends who all agreed with me, right? But they wouldn't speak out. And you could see all over the place, people would say quietly, they're making me put my pronouns in my bio for work. I don't agree with it, but they would do it anyway. And there was so much cancel culture that people would say, you know, I'm afraid to speak out, and it'd be like, oh, it's too bad that you're afraid to speak out. And it's like, at the time, I remember saying to people, like, if we just all said the truth, if we all just spoke up, we couldn't get canceled,
right?
Because there's way more of us than there are of them. We know what reality is. We know what the truth is. And all we have to do is stand up, stand on the word, speak up, say the truth. And everyone was afraid to do it. We were all just pushed around by like the green-haired mean girls with nose piercings who were screaming at us, telling us we were bigots.
This silent majority phenomenon has been going on for a long time. I mean, this is also true of saying that you should restrict immigration over the border. For a long time, Republicans were afraid to talk about this. Democrats at one point were the ones calling for border restrictions, and ultimately became this: you're being racist, you're being anti-humanitarian, people need this, you can't talk about this. And then culture shifted, and it suddenly became something that you could talk about. I find this
it's because people kept talking. Like a bunch of us just kept
I feel
talking,
like-
even though we lost our jobs or friends or whatever.
And I think it's just like nothing new under the sun, kind of one of those things. Because council culture, I feel like any party that embraces council culture, they only have about 8 years maximum to have that dominance. Because I remember in the past, distinctively, when I was younger, my mom was a Republican Christian, and she was also a part of Christian council culture. I remember it being a thing, like canceling Harry Potter, canceling
Right, I remember
GTA,
this.
canceling NWA. That was Christian canceling these things. And
That was
leftists,
Tipper Gore too.
Yeah.
Tipper Gore hated all that.
and they
stuff.
copied what Christians really did and magnified it. It intensified it to the point that we see now. But since it's intensified, I say conservatives had a grasp on America through council culture maybe like 12 years. Since it's so much stronger, I think liberals only have about 6 max.
Yeah, it's kind of running out.
Supreme dominance. People could only take so much, just like maybe with conservatives. They could only take so much with liberals. They took it way too far, too fast. And we just don't have that the patience for it. Just
Right.
It's a lot. If you hit as hard as you hit, you'll leave just as fast.
Was that frustrating for you growing up if your mom was the one being like, you can't do these things?
Well,
or
yeah,
did
no,
you see the
it
value
wasn't really
in it?
that. She was just joining the boycotts. I remember, like with Harry Potter, I could never watch Harry Potter, or if she ever seen a Harry Potter book, my mom would burn the book because she
She
said,
burned- she
yeah,
actually- it's
she would
hard to burn a book. It's
she would
not
burn.
easy
She would
to
find a
actually
way.
set
She
a
was
book on
committed.
She would find a way. She would find a way. She would put
And
it
did
in
she
the
tell you, like, I'm doing this because I believe
Yeah,
this? Or
yeah,
were you just
yeah,
like, my
probably.
mom's wild?
Christian conservative beliefs. She'll say that's witchcraft, that's the devil. Don't fund token. And I think it's kind of funny because that's one of the main people speaking out against transgenderism now, which is crazy. So it
Things
really
have
just
shifted.
shows how things come full circle. Conservatives were canceling her in the past. Now liberals are canceling her
Right.
over 2 different
Two
scenarios.
totally
Yeah.
different things.
I think sometimes there's this, especially if something's been popular culture, people feel like, oh, well, I don't want my kid to like resent me for keeping this
Yeah.
from them.
Yeah.
And so they're hesitant to say like, this is why we don't do this as a family, or like they're trying to find a way to sort of balance. And I can understand that. It must be really difficult. I don't have kids. I can't imagine the challenge. Maybe Libby can talk about it. But that idea that your mom was like, it's not even that you can't read it, it's that we're going to burn it. It's kind of fascinating.
There was a lot of Christians, or at least conservatives around my area, would not engage in any of those things. They didn't call it council culture at the time. It was called standing on your beliefs or standing for Christ. But in a political sense, it is council culture. It's, in my opinion, canceling GTA, a video game.
Right.
Now it's looked absurd. But back then it was very serious business.
Yeah, with my son, like he can read any book on the shelf. Just ask me about it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
He can watch most things. I mean, there's restrictions on his, there's restrictions on his laptop and stuff. But like, I'll sit and watch YouTube content with him, and then I know what he's watching and I know what he's interested in, and we talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also funny you mentioned earlier about the fact that the kids are now voting. We talked about this earlier as a story. Kids are now voting towards Gen Z, or in general voting towards the right conservatively. It's because like you said, the liberalism thing has been cool for so long, and that's like the mainstream now. And to
Yeah,
like
it's
be punk
mainstream.
would be like would not be doing that, and that's what's coming.
You
around
can't
the
be
bend.
based and be mainstream, because
Right,
based
yeah.
is literally a
Being true to
revolution
yourself.
against the mainstream.
Yeah,
Whatever's
it's true to
mainstream.
yourself. Right.
Yeah, I remember when I when I was in high school, this was years ago, this was in the 90s, but I had like, dyed blue hair, and I was sort of like punk rockish or whatever. And when I went to college, everybody was punk rock, and everybody was like wearing fishnet stockings as tops instead and like all this stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. And my hair was suddenly normal, and I started dressing preppy, and I was like, okay, I'm wearing a button down and jeans now, y'all. That's the
But I
plan.
think that nonconformity is it's what I find really interesting about the way like teenagers' brains develop is that they're looking for social acceptance, but also they really want to create and carve out their own identity.
Yeah.
And watching teenagers navigate this in such a intense political time when what's at stake is a lot. I mean, if you stumble down one rabbit hole trying to search for who you are, you could have lifelong consequences right now. But that desire to not do what everyone is doing is still there.
Well, and your teachers aren't cool. So when your teachers are pushing, counterculture on you, you're like, that's not cool.
No.
You look awful. That's
I want
very
to talk to you guys
stupid.
about this new cartoon coming out in a couple hours, actually. It's called Has Been Hotel, and I'm seeing some outrage over it because it is, as some describe, the veneration of demons. So you have this this story. Actually, I'll play the trailer for you guys. The first thing I want to say is I'm not acting like there's this big outrage campaign against it. there's just, I see people posting these things on Twitter talking about how it makes Lucifer to be the good guy. It eliminates the concept of God. It is a fictional show about demons in hell that are being killed by heaven because heaven's actually the bad guys who want social order. And in hell, they're trying to convince bad people to repent so they can get let back into heaven. I don't see it as inherently like good or bad, but there is a question around producing content that is popular, winning a culture war, and biblical teaching. So let me just play this for you, and then I'll get your guys' thoughts on it.
Once upon a time, there was a glowing city protected by golden gates, known as heaven. It was ruled by beings of pure light, angels that worshipped good and shielded all from evil. Lucifer was one of these angels. He was a dreamer with fantastical ideas for all of creation, but he was seen as a troublemaker by the elders of heaven, for they felt his way of thinking was dangerous to the order of their world. So he watched as the angels began to expand the universe in their ways. From the dust of earth, they created Adam and Lilith, equals as the first of mankind. But despite this, Adam demanded control, and Lilith refused to submit to his will. She fled the garden. Drawn in by her fierce independence, Lucifer found her, and the two rebellious dreamers fell deeply in love.
Anna Claire's
Together,
wincing.
They wished to share the magic of free will with humanity, offering the fruit of knowledge to Adam's new bride, Eve, who gladly accepted. But this gift came with a curse, for with this single act of disobedience, evil finally found its way into earth. With it, a new realm of darkness and sin, and the order heaven had worked to maintain was shattered. As punishment for their reckless act, heaven cast Lucifer and his love into the dark pit he had created, never allowing him to see the good that came from humanity, only the cruel and the wicked. Ashamed, Lucifer lost his will to dream, but Lilith thrived, empowering demonkind with her voice and her songs, and as the numbers of
Where is
hell
your mom
grew,
when we need her?
so did its power. Threatened by this, heaven made a truly heartless decision, that every year they would send down an army, an extermination, to ensure hell and its sinners could never rise against them. But Lilith's hope remained, and her dream was passed down to their precious daughter, the princess of hell. Don't worry, Mom. I'll make you proud.
So there's this, it's a show on YouTube. There's another show that's related to it. Super popular. It's got, they get like tens of millions of views. But basically, what I'm seeing from a lot of people, they're commenting saying that the propagandists, I don't think it's, I don't like that. Look, Prime, they're saying like Amazon Prime is doing this. Amazon Prime has Sound of Freedom on it, and it's actively promoting Sound of Freedom. I'll take it. It also is now launching this show. I think they saw a big audience. They said, let's take it. But the controversy arises in that this show makes it out that, one, that Lilith is real. And, you know, a lot of people, again, I'm not a biblical scholar, but people are like, that's blasphemy. And that Lucifer is not a bad guy, but also people are saying it's not even actually biblical. There is no God. Heaven is evil. Heaven wants to just go and exterminate all these people by sending soldiers down to kill them. And my whole take on this is I think it's interesting because if your concern is that major media is funding massively shows that corrupt biblical teaching in some way, whether intentionally or otherwise, the answer is to build culture and counter it by making your own content, shows, cartoons, or otherwise. Complaining about it's not going to solve anything, but I'm curious what you guys think if it even matters.
It's got amazing production value. I will say that. Like it looks well drawn.
Why were you wincing?
Okay. Well, the thing is, it is sort of interesting to think of this as like a thought experiment where someone was like, I'm going to tell you the story, and then you have to spin it so it's completely the opposite of it. Like in that way, it is almost fascinating what they have done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that bad of a thing, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not a Satanist, but it's just vice versa. It's just, it's entertainment.
Yeah, it is
like, what if God was evil? Or from the bad guy perspective, there's video games that let us see from the bad guy perspective.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of like restricting art. I think that you have to have like counterculture ideas, and this would be countercultural because like my Christian beliefs, of course. But like the other thing that is like, when I'm looking at it, I'm like, did you, who wrote this? Like, did you grow up in a church and learn the story and then you're like, but I have decided to change it? Or are you someone who doesn't understand like this story of Adam and Eve and everything, and you have been like, well, Adam actually seems like a really oppressive guy, and he wouldn't let Eve eat from the apple, and that's very rude.
Well, you saw like
it
in the
is
beginning,
almost crazy.
it's like Lilith would not submit to Adam to the man.
Yeah.
She was fiercely independent.
She's such a feminist girl boss, and then she falls in love with this silly trickster Satan, who's just
Well,
hanging
Lucifer,
out,
not Satan.
or whatever his name is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it is like. I'm wincing because it's my brain being like, this is very weird. But on the other hand, like whoever wrote this should go work for some top government PR spin room because they really can be like,
They spun
actually,
Well,
they
here's
spun
what's
this
funny about it.
fantastically.
Someone commented that it's low-key based because it has all the gay people in hell. And I was like, that's actually should be rather offensive to them.
Right.
But the issue is because the people behind it are, my understanding is that they're like woke. They created a bunch of characters that, you know, are like them. And so all the people that are in hell are leftists.
Which I'm sure that comes from like them being like, oh, everyone else says I'm going to hell because of however I live my life or whatever.
No,
I do.
I think it's more like the characters we make need to be diverse. So let's make all of our characters diverse. And it's like, you just put a bunch of woke leftists in hell.
Well, isn't that
Like,
where they'd
kicked
be
out of heaven.
They'd probably be happier there. You know,
that's
they'd
what they're
probably be
saying.
happier
They're
in
like,
hell.
heaven's
Yeah.
a bad place.
I think
Heaven,
diversity,
right.
the term diversity has changed too, because now diversity pretty much means insert different type of like LGBTQ. In the past, it used to be like bring an Indian here, bring an Asian right here, bring a black right here. It's completely different now. What
Well,
people say
Asians are no longer considered diverse according to most government contracts that
What?
require quotas.
What, for real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you serious? I
Oh,
know-
yeah.
I know-
Yeah. Asians, East
How is that
Asians,
possible?
as well as South Asians. I know in New York, in the
nuts.
architecture and engineering contracts, they have quota systems for minorities, but quota system there's no quota for Asians because they are overrepresented
Oh,
in
what?
those fields,
And
so
it
it
was-
doesn't count anymore.
It was
Wow,
the
that's crazy.
Asian student
my
groups that
goodness, wow.
initially brought the admissions lawsuit.
The law,
This-
the
this is-
Harvard thing.
Supreme Court.
But I,
This is why I no longer identify as Asian. I'm actually Hispanic. Because
I think that's smart.
Hispanic means speak Spanish.
I'm Native American.
And so because
Me and Elizabeth Warren, same amount.
But so no, check this out. When you are filling out a form and it says Caucasian, Hispanic, African American, whatever, Hispanic means speak Spanish.
Yeah.
It does not mean you are from Latin America or whatever. It could mean that, but it literally means Spanish speaking. That's why they say there's white Hispanic.
Too bad I.
So I'm just gonna be like, I speak Spanish. How do I say?
Hola el sombrero.
Donde está la biblioteca?
I was dog sitting for Dane, our marketing guy, when he went on his honeymoon, and he and his wife have 2 dogs, and they both speak Spanish at home. And so they came to my house, and one is calm and one is really scared. And my roommate and I were trying to figure out like how to like talk to them. We're like, it's okay, you know, it's everything's fine. And then it occurred to us that like these dogs only speak Spanish, and we were saying like, I can't say anything. I said like biblioteca, but she said like you're bonita, and one of the dogs like turned around and looked at her like, yes, I am. Like they had no idea what we were talking about until we started speaking Spanish.
I speak Spanish. Afuera. So Candace said that means outside. I guess she didn't know about the Malay meme, but it means out. Like it's a verb too, like get out. And it's always weird when I hear people tell me this, because I went to Spain during the M something protest, M24 whatever protests, and the cops. I love this in France. No, wait. We'll start with America. In America, the SWAT police, the riot cops, they all hold their truncheons. They stand in line and they go like this as they move forward, and they yell, "Move, move!" In France and in Canada, you know what they say?
What?
Bouge.
Ooh.
Yeah,
That's
which means
right.
move. Right.
But you are bougie. You are
Yeah,
out here
and
protesting.
then in
you
Spain,
bougie
you know what they say?
fools.
Afuera. They yell afuera as they're pushing people out.
It's like get out. Get
And
out.
so when I was in Spain hearing them yell that, I was like, I kind of understand what they're saying. They're saying like, get out, move, go away or whatever. And then my friends were saying, they're saying out, out, out. And then I had people tell me that it means outside. And I guess it's like for people who only just speak a little bit of Spanish, they're like, that means outside. Why are you saying that? And I'm like, Javier Milei was yelling afuera as he was ripping the things down. And, Dane messaged me and he was like, it means like get out or outside as well.
Dane fact checks our Spanish all the time.
So I speak Spanish now. That means I'm Hispanic. And I am no longer, I tweeted identify as Asian because there were these leftists arguing that I don't qualify as mixed race unless I assert that I identify as such, that the actual DNA within my body and the race of my mother is meaningless. And the only thing that matters is I choose to identify as such. And I'm like, really?
Because identity is a political designation.
So
it's not.
crazy.
But that means,
identity
like-
isn't anything about your.
That means you can identify as Asian.
I'm totally Asian. What are you kidding me, Tim? You're out of your mind.
Well, I'm Hispanic from now on because it means speak Spanish. Take that, Dane.
I
Okay,
eat way
so
too
what
much
should I
kimchi to not be
be?
Asian.
Oh, is that what it takes?
Yes, it's
Interesting.
kimchi.
I'll get back to you guys with
You
my
should
diversity
be. You should
card.
be Hispanic.
I should be
Hispanic.
with my biblioteca. Dane's gonna be like,
Oh.
absolutely not.
I'm actually an indigenous American.
Yeah, you are. That makes sense to me. I mean,
Okay.
I legitimately am first generation American. I'm the child of immigrants. People just don't think it's that spicy of countries, you know?
Can you say dos tacos de pollo, por favor?
I honestly am afraid to on the internet because it's going to be so bad.
But if you say it, you can then claim to be Hispanic because
I was at this,
no one ever said in order to speak a language you have to be smart, right? Like if
You
there
don't
was
have to be good at it to speak.
exactly
Like I was at this Mexican wedding in Puerto Vallarta several years ago, and my Spanish is terrible, but I did know how to continue asking for mango margaritas.
That's the
Por
most
favor.
important skill of all
It
time.
was very important, and as the night continued, I thought I got more and more emboldened in my Spanish.
Sure, I wonder why. What could have fueled
Yes,
that?
What could have fueled that? But yeah, by the end, I was pretty secure in my Espanol.
It was really good
My
Spanish.
accent was exactly like this one too, so
my
it was
gosh.
going over really well.
I mean, I do think that is what people will end up doing. I think they already do it to just sort of claim whatever tangential thing they can because it all sort of becomes meaningless, at least
Yeah.
to me. Like it seems to, like it all falls apart. And it's too bad because there are people who really do feel like their cultural ties, even though they were raised in America very strongly and they observe different traditions or whatever else. But for the most part, it's like, what boxes can I check so that I get more advantages with the federal government or with universities?
I never got to say what I thought of that thing, and I just think it's the glamorization of evil, and that's really, I think that's not a great thing, but I wouldn't prevent people from doing it. I do think that there needs to be a lot more art being made by people who are not leftists. It doesn't have to have activism in it.
Yeah.
But it should be artistic.
I think
Do
you
you
should just
guys-
make cool stuff.
Do you guys know what burrito means?
No. I do know the origin of burritos, however.
What is the origin of burrito?
Well, you're probably going to be like, no, Libby, that's totally wrong. But Mexican cowboys would go out and be cowboys, and they would take burritos and they would put them under
But
the
doesn't
saddle.
it come from the word for donkey, like a burro?
burro.
Yeah,
and
and it would
burrito
save-
means little donkey.
and it would stay warm all day, just like tucked in.
Well, I was told
Under the
that they're
saddle.
called burritos is because when the baby donkey is born, they wrap the blanket.
I'm learning so much about
And
Tim's
so they
new
called
culture.
a burrito, it means little donkey. My
Wow.
favorite thing at Taco
wow,
Bell
that's
is a
crazy.
gordita because that means little fat girl.
I will never look at these the same again.
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Eating lots of little fat girls.
Gordita. Yeah, it means little fat girl.
We're all now Hispanic, but mostly because we can read the Taco Bell menu.
That's the important part. That and the margaritas.
Yeah, like, okay, so
I
I'm probably
love
wrong, but
margaritas. I'm-
gordo means fat.
I would be like, yo,
And then the
quiero
diminutive
mango
is-
margarita, por favor.
Gordo means fat, and then ito and ita means like child, small. So gordita is little fat girl.
Man, that's
Nice.
crazy.
That's hilarious. What an amazing language.
I think that they
Yeah.
should all come with faces on them from now on, like a little.
I guess you have to say
corn husk.
gortitex now if you want to be politically correct. Go to Taco Bell and
Except
can I get a
Hispanic-
chalupix
except
and a
His-
gorditix?
Hispanic people don't use the X. They like
know.
regular, like, what is this?
No, they hate it.
They hate it.
yeah.
We should totally do that. We should film a video where we go to Taco Bell and order the gorditix.
Yes, any excuse to go to Taco Bell, you know. I'm in. If it's for work, Tim.
There's a I would say right now, but there's a blizzard coming.
Work tacos.
We're in a state of emergency right now. Actually, that's true.
That is crazy.
West Virginia's in a state of emergency because
We're getting a lot of snow.
we don't have plows. I mean, we're mountain people.
I think that's
I shouldn't say we because I'm an immigrant to the mountain land.
me too.
I'm
to be
I'm
fair,
an even
Right.
more recent immigrant to the mountain.
I'm a
land than
refugee to
y'all.
West Virginia.
But I do feel like now
Wait,
that
wait.
I live in a southern state, I can say y'all, and that's the I'm into that.
That's all I know.
But
Very
I do want to
useful
say
word.
to all of our mountain folk, we did migrate here legally
Mm-hmm.
to this great mountain land of West Virginia. But
I
when
pursued
it
legal asylum here.
right when it snows though, so when we were coming back from Iowa, we landed. The plane landed on 4 inches of snow and was sliding. It was
Yikes.
crazy. And then outside the airport, there's no plows, so there's 4 inches of snow, pure, pristine, untouched snow everywhere. And so the cars were driving through it. We had to drive 20 to 30 miles an hour all the way back because you're going up hills and down hills. It's relatively mountainous. And by the time we got back to the house, we couldn't make it up the driveway. Our driveway is not like a small driveway. It's like 10 feet. It's like
It's like vertical.
it's like 1,000 feet. And so we got 10 feet up and and then slid back down. And I was like, let's start walking. So when it snows, and it's going to snow tonight, the state is like, you will slide down the mountain. So you've been warned.
I actually called my dad and asked him how to drive on ice because I only got my driving license a couple of years ago. So I grew up in New England, but I would have learned. I mean, by rights, I should have learned how to drive.
Come on, New
snow.
England.
Yeah, and then in New York, there was no, I mean, they plow everything right away.
We're going to go to Super Chats. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share this show right now with all your friends because it's the best show. Everyone agrees. At least that's what I've been told. And head over to Timcast.com, click join us, become a member because we got that members only uncensored show coming up for you. And everything we do here is only possible because you guys are members. And I mean it. I'll stress this. For me personally, what I get paid working for this company is all entirely based off of the Tim Pool Daily Show. That means for everybody who watches and supports Timcast IRL and the clips, we use that money for investing in projects. We use it for creating new cultural stuff. We're using it for traveling to do shows, say like in Iowa and things like this. And when you become a member, you are just helping us expand culture and work on the mission. So it is greatly appreciated. It makes it all possible. Here we go. That's Dan Zatastic. First or nah? First! You are, in fact, the first. You win. A high five from your roommate.
I hope they are keeping score somewhere.
Yeah. Ready to Rumble says, congrats, Dom. You are the 6th most community noted person.
Oh,
you
yeah.
lie like almost no other. You should be banned for lying so much.
Yeah, I'm getting targeted. It's crazy. I even proved it. There's this one user that's actually community noted 86% of my content.
What? 86?
Yeah, and
One
they're only
guy?
talking to conservatives. Yeah, I posted it on my ex. They're only talking to conservatives.
Yeah,
And
this is
I've-
what they do when I called out Ron DeSantis. The DeSantis campaign stole one of our videos and then put a tag on it saying paid for by the DeSantis campaign.
Oh, yeah, that was messed up.
And then when I tweeted like, hey, they did not pay for this, the DeSantis people put a fake community note to trick people. What they were trying to make it so here's the context. There was a short video that was about 7 seconds long. The clip was filmed by Elad Eliyahu, a reporter formerly of Timcast News, now of SCNR. The DeSantis campaign took just that clip and nothing else, sent it out in a tweet with a tag saying paid for by DeSantis in the video. When I said, hey, they did not pay for this, we did not get any money, because I'm like, I'm not saying take it down. I'm just saying we had nothing to do with the DeSantis campaign. They put a fake community note to make it seem like it was a 3-minute long ad and that the message was part of standard reporting processes for political ads. To which I'm like, I got a fake community note to trick people. And I was like, no, guys. I am not saying that that's not the correct thing. I'm saying if you take only our reporter's footage, then claim paid for by DeSantis, that sends a very different message to if you made a commercial where a guy is talking and says, did you know that LGBT activists want your children? Watch this video. Paid for by Ron DeSantis. That I get. Not what they did. A raw version of our clip with their tag on it. And then when I said, we have nothing to do with this, they put a fake community note. These people are dirty, man.
It's dirty, yeah. They'll do whatever they can. But it only happens when you start to get more and more credibility or reach. They don't care about tarnishing anything if it don't exist.
Yeah. All right, here we go. James Eaton says new Wuhan virus targets blood-brain barrier. Old COVID tests damaged it. Maybe plan all along was to weaken people to catch new one easier. Who knows? But Chinese scientists 100% kill rate and is found in the brain. That being said, there have been COVID tests that found similar things among mice, so who knows for sure. All right. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, guys, the future's sad. The future's a sad thought. Lonely guys pay for OnlyFans or AI girls, and then there's the girls doing OnlyFans and face surgery. How will it all turn out? In the future, the porn industry will cease to exist. Women will no longer ever be able to do porn.
Yeah, I believe it.
Because AI. I'm sorry, ladies, men will be better at making porn for men than women will be
I'm
of
sorry.
themselves.
Yeah.
I'm okay
Darn,
with it.
what a loss to society.
Oh, no.
I mean, I guess in that
porn
sense,
will get
porn
worse
will
than it's ever
exist,
been.
but
And it'll
like,
be worse than it's ever been.
I think that's sort of what you need for women to start being like, actually, we don't like porn. I feel like right now, if there's a chance they can make money off it, they're more open to it. If they stop being able to make money off it,
There's
they might
been
be like,
politicians doing porn with their husbands
I know.
on
Oh, jeez.
OnlyFans in Virginia. And then when
There-
it was revealed, they claimed that they were victimized. And it's like, Girl, you literally filmed yourself having sex with your man and put it on internet.
There is
You
a
victimize yourself.
There's an AI woman. They have videos. She makes $30,000 a month. I think that's criminal, and it should be listed. It should be fraud, because guys think it's a real woman.
Yeah, that's
and they're
nasty.
sending money. That should be fraud. If right, okay, if you're a man and you create a fake profile with female pictures, trick men into giving you money, that is fraud. You'll go to jail for this. But these guys use AI, and they're like, it's totally cool. We're using AI. It's like, you should go to jail.
Yeah.
it's
But the
should go
language
to
around
jail.
these like AI generated people, like all the AI generated influencers that exist, there's a lot of them now. They refer to them like they are actual beings that exist. Like there was I don't remember what its name is, but it's a female AI, whatever. She's an influencer, and then they're like, she just released a pop song, but actually she didn't do anything because she doesn't exist.
There's a
The
lot
people
of
behind
those.
her did it, and you use someone else's voice.
You know what else is gross? Are AI fitness influencers.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
You haven't made any progress. You're just drawn different.
you're not even real.
All right, let's read some more. Pup Shepherd says, I really like Hell of a Boss. When I learned of the plot of Has Been Hotel, I felt deja vu of stories with childlike naivete about people's ability to change. I don't like it. Hell needs to be bad. Hell of a Boss is related, I think. It's the same animator who's doing the show Has Been Hotel. Amazon bought it. They have like millions. They have like 1 billion views on YouTube. It's really popular. It's really popular. I think it's funny seeing people say it's propaganda and demonic. That's why I wanted to bring it up. Because I'm like, there's literally a show called Lucifer, where Lucifer is the good guy, kind
He's
of.
totally the good guy, yeah.
Yeah. And then you
I mean,
have...
he's also a little depraved.
Yeah. And that's, and he solves murder mysteries, which is like just a weird premise.
Yeah.
It is weird, yeah.
Although I really did like when they did Crisis on Infinite Earths and Lucifer was in it. And Constantine's in it too, and they did the crossover. I thought that was fun. But then there's also quite literally Constantine, where it's like he goes to hell, and he like in the movie Keanu Reeves actually confronts the devil. I'm not gonna cry because someone made fiction about religious stuff or whatever, but I do think there is something interesting there in that the first experience a young person may have with religion will be through the lens of poor Lucifer and poor Lilith. And then if someone actually comes to them later on and says like, here's the religious text, they're going to be like, that's BS. I watched that cartoon. Lucifer was a good guy. Hell was not bad. And then it's like, actually, if you watch the show, I was saying this too, like they're all really awful people. Like
Yeah,
the
but-
characters in hell. Yeah, they're bad.
They
They're all
are
bad.
on Friends, too. I mean, maybe Friends was just in hell. They were terrible people.
Actually,
also.
that's a great premise for a short film. Like the end of Friends, it's just like they've been in hell the whole time.
It turns out they're in hell. It's like Sartre's No Exit, but it's just all the Friends characters.
That'd be great.
That would be really a fun watch. I would watch
Libby
it.
has a new project,
I would
guys.
watch this.
Let's grab some more super chats. What have we here? Man, I'm fighting a sneeze.
Part of it too, though, is we have stopped teaching our children religion either in a faithful way or an anthropological way. So they're not going to know these stories. They're not going to know anything about Lilith or even who Adam and Eve are. They're not even going to understand the apple. And I think that's going to be the real turning point for the eradication of Western literature. When no one understands the Bible, no one's going to understand Western lit anymore.
Well,
Which is
Lilith is
sad.
not in the Bible.
No. I mean, I was just looking it up, and apparently there's apparently Isaiah says something. A wilderness demon shunned by Isaiah is something which I don't remember personally, but apparently Lilith was, according to biblicalarchaeology.org,
Like, they just
her
make-
dark origins lie in Babylonian demonology.
They just make Adam out to be like this dick. He's like, you know what's really funny though? I'd love to take that and here's what I'll do. I will edit that trailer and then it'll be like, from the dust of the earth, they created Adam and Lilith, but Adam wanted her to submit and she didn't want to. So she fled the garden where she died because she couldn't survive on her own without a man. And that's how I'd end it.
I think that would be good. That would be at least, hewing to reality a little more.
I agree with what you're saying though. Like they're not learning like the base stories. Like they talk about art. Like you have to know like the art in the past
Right.
to really change anything. So you know what you started from to go forward. And like with this,
They're not going to know it.
yeah, they may not even be aware of like, oh, they may know the paradigm hell is bad, heaven's good. But in this story, it doesn't seem like that at all.
No, they don't know it at all. They won't know the characters. And I think part of understanding literature when it was written was also understanding cultural influences. Like, you need to be able to teach Christianity without being like, well, but it's evil, so don't believe any of this. Just the way you would need to be able to teach any sort of philosophy that maybe you don't personally believe in, but you're like, here are what the allusions to these tenets might be. And I think that knee-jerk reaction to be like, we can't talk about it because it's ultimately bad, is going to starve really intellectually curious younger generations ultimately.
We got an interesting
I
one.
agree.
Just Leave Me Alone says, I watched Trump's speech in New Hampshire, no blisters, photoshopped. That was in the article too. It claimed that later on when Trump was giving a speech, there were no blisters on his hands. So it's not that it's photoshopped. Trump may have literally just had red marker on his hand.
Yeah, he's like sitting in a meeting doodling, and then they're like, "You got to get that off your hand immediately." He's like,
He's like-
"Okay."
or he left and went, oh, I got marker on my hand. And then they gave him a washcloth and he wiped it off. And now there's this big story about him having syphilis because he was like,
It does look
he's like
bright
drawing,
red.
he's got like
It
a
looked
red
weirdly
marker and
red.
he's drawing a
Yeah.
picture of a cat. You know,
Or he's
Cool.
like actually a secret painter, and he just does it for himself, and he was using red paint and forgot to wash it off.
Here's a good one. Mr. Grizzly Bear
Him
says,
and
I
George
work
Bush.
for Anheuser-Busch on a bottle line, and there will absolutely be a strike. They are refusing to guarantee job security and pay raises and have left negotiations. They want to close down plants, and we all know it. Yeah, because nobody's buying your beer, dude. Yo, that's crazy.
That is crazy.
The strikes will result in no product. No product means no sales. Their liabilities are going to stack up. Anheuser-Busch is going to go, that's it, time to pull the plug.
Yeah.
Shut them down.
When the boycotts were going on in the beginning, I felt sort of bad for the workers, like people who just work at the bottling plants. If Bud Light lost sales, potentially they're going to face layoff, right? It's sort of in some ways makes me feel better that this is a strike that they are able to carry out themselves. It's like they have a choice in the situation because they didn't have a choice about the advertising, right? If you're just a factory worker, if you just work on the line, you don't get to say, well, actually, I don't think it's a good idea to put Dylan Mulvaney in this ad.
All right, let's grab some more.
so wild.
But Donkey Kong says AMC Theaters perfectly popped popcorn. It's so good. Well, okay. I saw this great video. The guy took a straw and he stuck it into his theater popcorn, and then he pushed the butter button, and the butter went into the straw
That's what I do.
into the center of the popcorn.
That's exactly what I
However,
do.
there's a much better video where a morbidly obese gentleman working at a theater spins the popcorn around and flips it in the air. Have you seen this one?
No.
And they were like, whatever it is you do with your life, be the best. And it's this like fat guy, and he's like spinning the popcorn, and he throws it in the air, catches it, and then puts more butter and spins it again. And he's the best popcorn guy I've ever seen. So yeah, shout out.
Nice.
That's cool.
It's like got millions of views on his popcorn spinning.
You gotta check out this popcorn rabbit hole.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
is that?
Seriously.
Where is that?
Google like popcorn theater guy, and you'll probably find it. Because he has a bunch of videos apparently where he's really good at making theater popcorn.
I love people with niche talents. He's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
this is what I am skilled at, and I'm going to do it.
Corpus
Like,
Christi.
You found it?
Popcorn guy.
field trip.
Popcorn
Let's all
guy.
go.
Oh wow, this dude blew up on
I
popcorn.
think we should go to Corpus Christi. What's that like?
Maybe
sort
we
of
should hire popcorn guy for a party.
like
and like
east of Houston ish.
oh
It's
dude,
south, right? It's like the coast.
Cool.
we should hire him
forget
for
where Houston
our
is, though.
Freedomistan opening party, and we'll get like 5 different kinds of popcorn, and he can mix them all together and like add
This
stuff
is
to
a
it.
great idea.
This is fantastic. I definitely think we should do this.
Popcorn guy. Yeah, I don't know what his deal is. I don't know anything about it. I saw his videos on the internet.
popcorn guy. Corpus Christi.
But you remember him
see the
too.
video?
Like that's the cool thing.
Well, I'm seeing a news report on it, so it's news people talking. I haven't got to the video yet, sadly.
Just
But
jump
he-
ahead till you can see it.
He didn't do this to become famous. He did this just because he loves popcorn. And he was
Yeah.
like, I'm doing it with flair.
Look at him. He's spinning it on his finger.
Oh yeah, he's the best.
Like a
at this.
basketball.
And he's having a great time.
We gotta find this guy. Hire him for a party.
Anyone know this guy?
Maybe
I
he's
don't
on
know.
tour with like a popcorn. He's like now going to other AMC theaters and training them, but no one has the
He's hired by
pizzazz.
the circus, so when he's like, if you want to buy your popcorn, it's part of the show. Actually,
What if he grew up in the circus and that's where the skill comes from? The
He's a
lore is
circus
too
man.
much for me.
I learned how to spin things on my finger from working at nonprofits. Because when you're standing outside with a binder or a clipboard, the only thing you have to do is just spin the binder on your finger, and now I can spin basically anything on my finger. It's kind of crazy.
So this could be you, is what you're saying. You're like this close to becoming. a
I'm
popcorn
actually
guy.
really impressed because the popcorn is like cylindrical. It's like very narrow. I
It
would not
is.
be able to spin that.
Well, you start with the bucket and you work your way to the narrow one.
I know, right? That's very impressive. You give me like, I could spin a pizza on my finger, like a pizza tray. You give me like a massive disc, I can spin it over my head basically indefinitely, but something narrow is really difficult.
Seems very challenging.
Yeah.
This is the thing. Like people with niche skills and interests, they're just great. He just did it because he wanted to. And
All right. Dylan Visitation says, my wife really likes Appalachian Nights coffee and she never likes new different things. Good job. She also likes Jeremy's razors for women.
it
I
seems
like
like a
your wife.
subtle dig here. She never likes new different things.
Perhaps, but I will say, when we were looking at the sales for Appalachian Nights, I was like, holy crap. We sold out of the whole bean like last week and we had to get more in stock. I think that's like our star product. When we first started, we were like, Rise with Roberto Jr., it's got a rooster on it. Everybody was buying that. And then I think what happens is we're like, yeah, people like Appalachian Nights as well. It's my personal favorite. Meritocracy. We can put a rooster on the bag and people buy it for that reason. But when it comes down to what's the best and gets the most sales, people keep rebuying the Appalachian Nights, saying it's the best coffee they've ever had. I got to be honest, it is the best coffee I've ever had. Yeah. But I mean, I made it for myself. It's like we get sent all these different samples and origins, and I'm like mixing them together. And then I was like, ooh, this one's my favorite. I want to have this. Here's the flavors that I like. And it worked. All right. Raybert G. Stanbert Jr. says, Tim, can I humbly request an espresso blend? I've been making primetime grind in an espresso powder, and it's awesome. Wife likes a Mr. Bocus espresso. That is good. Yeah, we the plan is Ian's Graphene Dream is next. And then I think after that, we're going to do Focus with Mr. Bocus. And that'll be our espresso.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah. Although I am surprised more people don't buy Sleepy Joe. Just because of the name of it.
It's a cute name.
Sleepy Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're making fun of Joe Biden.
Yeah.
There you go. Buy a present for your family members.
I'd rather buy the one that someone says is the best coffee ever.
It really is crazy. I mean, it worked out for us. We hit the nail on the head with that one. Yeah, Appalachian Nights. People tell us all the time, like they keep rebuying it. They're like, man, I'm really excited that people like it so much because it's my favorite.
That's awesome.
All right. Gene Lehman says Trump has flaming hot Cheeto fingers. Could you imagine if that was really it? He's like sitting in the courtroom munching on Flamin' Hots, and then he walks out, waves, wipes his hand off, it's gone, and then they're like, he's got syphilis. It's not a good marketing pitch for Flamin' Hots.
Flaming Hots is gonna come out and be like, we're not affiliated
First,
with Donald Trump.
they used to call him the Orange Cheeto Man, so I mean, it's kind of Owen. It's
Right.
kind of canon.
That would be the best product.
Yeah.
Like if they,
It's on
after
brand.
he leaves the
Cheetos.
White House, they're
He's
like,
transitioned to red
he
Cheeto
becomes the spokesperson
For like Trump Cheetos.
Yeah.
Transition
I
to
would eat
Flamin'
Trump.
Hot.
I like Cheetos.
BC
it's
asks,
great.
why can't Biden just checkmate the Republicans by giving amnesty to the millions who have illegally entered the country? He can. Probably will. At the end of the year, Joe
that's the
Biden
effort.
signs an executive order
That's what I keep saying is that's the plan. Amnesty for all of these people.
before he's out of office.
Yes, before he's out of office. You have
And-
Kathy Hochul just pledged $2.4 billion
Yep.
to make sure all the illegal immigrants in New York get jobs and shelter and whatever else. Imagine living in New York, paying $5,000 a month for your apartment, and now you have to pay taxes to fund everybody else's free lifestyle.
Yeah, this is wild to me. Michael Traugot says, I lived in San Antonio my entire life. The areas around the immigrant facility has changed. Crime has definitely gone up. The neighborhoods in that area were pretty quiet. Now there's illegals knocking on people's doors. It's kind of wild to me that I'm imagining like France, and there's like a French village in, I don't know, the 1400s or whatever. And then a bunch of British people start just like running full speed into their town. And they're like, oh, look, we're being enriched. And then there's like pillaging and fighting and crime. And they're just like, I can't believe this is happening. What's happened to our town? Like that's not how it would happen.
No, this
They-
is a
they-
total invasion, and it's
And
shocking
people are just
that
standing
people
there
are
being
just
like, would you look at that?
I think part
the
of it is
police are
and
facilitating
they say
smuggling.
anti-immigration rhetoric is a problem, and that anti-immigration rhetoric and discussing how you don't like the government, these are this is part of the misinformation and conspiracy
Right.
theories. No,
And
get
there are-
the hell out my town. Like we don't need you here.
There are red counties all along the border of Texas that are predominantly Hispanic, and they got more red under Trump. There is people who
Legal
legally
immigrants
immigrated
do not like
who settled
illegal
down, who built,
immigration.
communicate. No, they don't. I mean, can you imagine if it was like I did everything by the book, but if I hadn't, I would have actually gotten more benefits and special treatment. That
Right.
seems crazy to me.
It is
and
crazy.
It ultimately undermines the idea that we would reward people who respect our government and our culture enough to try and assimilate and follow the rules.
It undermines people that live in this country too, like Tejanos, Chicanos that have been here before the United States, who are here when it was part of Spain, and have been here and are Americans and have just been told like, oh, you're now an illegal immigrant, but in reality they've been here longer than anyone has. So.
And more than that, it's the Democrats being like, well, because of the color of your skin, we think that you'll be sympathetic to this cause.
right, very true.
It's more of that low key racism they got going.
Yeah.
I feel like it's high key. I think we should just
Right.
call it what it is.
All right. Tusnolorum says, the original story is literally that Lilith was an insane feminist, got turned into a snake for refusing to follow Adam's direction. Then God stole one of his ribs and made Eve from it and said, look, now you aren't equal, obey him. Huh.
Yeah, I think that's-
I do think the story's kind of funny because it's like, if there was a man and a woman in the middle of the wilderness, on average, if the guy was like, hey, we have to do these things, someone was like, no, I'm not listening to you, and ran off, she'd probably die.
Yeah.
I think men and women are complementary and they should work together. And so I think that's okay, right? Like, I don't think that women should feel like partnering with a man is a threat to them. And I think that's one of the problems with feminism. You know?
But I view it kind of like you are in a burning building and the firefighter says, do what I tell you. And you go, no way. And then you run upstairs and then you die.
Don't tell me what to do, man.
The guy, the narrative here about Lilith in this show is that the guy is just like, I'm the boss. As opposed to being, I am trying to save your life. Listen to what I am telling you. But you know what? To be honest, you can bring a horse to Harvard, but you can't make him learn.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Like Lilith was always to me is like she's like the ex, the crazy ex of Adam.
Lilith, yeah.
Right? And so until God felt so bad, he was like, here, I'll make you a new woman. That I kind of screwed up.
Felt
with
so
this.
bad.
That's what I've always thought of the story.
That God shows up and he's like, oof, what happened? It's like, she was a feminist, dude. It's like, that's my bad. Let me try and help you out
just
there
need a
and
rib.
give you a trad wife.
She was into abortions. We can't have that in the garden. Makes no sense.
Yeah, we're the first two people. It's really bad policy. So
I love the idea that
abortion right there.
Lucifer was attracted to her fierce independence.
Dude.
So
I
Lucifer
like
was
that
a male
women. I
feminist.
always wonder that.
Fierce independence.
Fierce independence. I feel like that's the thing when guys are like, I just love that you're so low maintenance. It's like, because then I don't have to put any effort in.
Right.
You're so independent. Like, just then I never have to call you or remember your birthday. Like, no.
Don't have to ask you out for Fridays.
No.
Dolph Oodle says, it is not fiction. Lilith is Gnosticism. It is inherently satanic. They aren't playing with Christianity. They are teaching their actual religion.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Moses. Okay.
Torgatron says, listen every day, read SCNR regularly. It gave me the wisdom to kindly change my girlfriend's mind on Trump. She'll be voting for him thanks to you. It's actually thanks to you. All we can do is, to the best of our ability, tell you the truth.
Marry
if
the
you're
girl.
able to sort through it and discern what is actually going on through the work we are doing, it's actually thanks to you that you've convinced someone. So, we can light the beacons, but it is you who must tell everyone that they have been lit. So appreciate it, and thanks for following the show.
Yeah, if she's submitted to you, you do have to marry her now.
You
That
should
is
just
law.
marry that girl.
All right, Cam Girl as soon as says, Tim, you know your idea to build culture falls apart if the left can just amnesty illegals to vote for them every so often, right? How do you expect that problem to be solved peacefully? Illegals will not be swayed by culture. Who said the solution to
Reagan
illegal immigration will be peaceful? I believe that when Trump enacts mass deportations, we would not call the arrest of criminals peaceful. When a police officer serves a warrant and kicks a door in, I wouldn't call it peaceful, but I would call it lawful. Hopefully no one is hurt. But if you're a criminal who broke the law to steal from this country and from the other immigrants who are coming here legally, then we are going to remove you. And it's very simple. If law enforcement comes to you and says, sir, you are under arrest, place your hands behind your back. Well, then it is a peaceful arrest, and much of it will be peaceful. And then the people who fight with cops, refuse, and their allies, and various states who do, will make it not peaceful. So there's that. But hopefully it will be peaceful in the sense that they just go home. All right, my friends, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Head over to timcast.com right now. Click join us, because the members only show is coming up in a few minutes, and it will be disturbing. Yes, I'm going to say right now, you will be very disturbed by what we're going to show you and talk about, and you have been warned. It is not family friendly, but that's why it's the members only uncensored show, because these are very serious topics. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally everywhere at Timcast. Dom, do you want to shout anything out?
Not really. Just thanks for having me on.
Right on. What's your Twitter?
At DOM_LUCRE.
Right on. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's been fun having you here.
Yeah, it's been a great time. Hopefully come back soon.
Yeah, it'd be cool. I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. It's the best. You should definitely check out all our work. See stuff from Chris Bertman, from Chris Carr, from Cassandra McDonald. It's great. I love it there. You can follow their work at Timcast. It's at Timcast News on X and Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm so bad at my outro tonight. If you want to follow me personally, I'm on X at HC Brimlow, and I'm on Instagram at hannahclaire.b. Thank you guys so much. Libby, do a better job than I did.
I'm Libby Emmons. I'm the editor at The Post Millennial. You can follow our work at thepostmillennial.com and also humanevents.com. And you can subscribe at thepostmillennial.com/subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter, which I still call Twitter, at Libby Emmons. and see everything that we're doing. Thanks.
You did fine, Hannah Claire. That was good.
Thanks, Serge.
I think we had a good episode today. Thanks for coming, Dom. Appreciate
My
it.
pleasure.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to the after show. I am Serge.com. I'm still working on that URL. I'll get it soon enough. See you guys soon.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in a couple minutes. Thanks for hanging out.